So welcome to Fandom Spotting. First order of business is to
Happy birthday!
Yes. What should we introduce ourselves first?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Let's do that.
Okay. I'm Asia /bookshop/ Asia, author of storiesdaily.com. Hey.
Hi, I am Nat, and I am Play That Sad Trombone on Tumblr.
Hi, I'm Yeats. I'm Free Kicks at Tumblr, and I'm wearing a birthday hat for obvious reasons.
And I'm Evi, and I'm Evi Was Here on Tumblr. And we want to start off by singing Happy Birthday to Yeats because of reasons involving Yeats' birthday.
Yay!
What other reasons?
La
Oh my god!
Yeats disappeared.
Yeats left!
Hold that thought.
That's
that
amazing.
Oh, this is the worst.
This is the worst.
As you can see,
Wait, Yeats is back. All right, we'll sing. Like
we are really 0 for 100 and trying to start the Hangout tonight. So here's our pitch. La la. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy
birthday, dear Yeats! Woo! Happy birthday to you.
Yay!
Thank you so much. Oh,
Happy
I'm so
birthday.
And
happy.
many more.
Yes.
For she's a jolly good fellow, and she's...
No, okay, enough singing.
all right, so next on our list, we realized that we had not covered several bases during our first nearly
By the way, we're
3-hour
talking
jam
about Les
session.
Mis tonight. We're talking about Les Mis. Yay, Les Mis. If you didn't know that.
I know. I was saying that we hadn't covered all of our bases in our too short 2-hour and 47-minute period. But we have more to talk about because Les Mis is public domain, and that means everybody has gotten their claws all over it. So, Yates, what do we want to talk about first?
Me? Why me?
Huh?
Why you said? Why do I get to pick what we talk about
You
first?
say Yeats or Yay?
I didn't say Yates. I said yay. Y-A-Y.
Oh, okay. Well, we're just
sorry,
so
I thought the
intimidated.
Silence. This is
The
a
first thing on our list
a
is
French
Gavroche. The first
Yes.
thing on our list is Gavroche. So let's talk about Gavroche. Who
Wait,
is
is
he?
that the? But I don't think that's structured very chronologically or whatever. Really.
Well,
Oh my god, I'm still like really flustered that this
What if we
started
started
working.
with? What if we started? Sorry. What if we started with the fact that Asia is now coming in having seen the movie?
Oh,
that's
yes,
not exactly
everybody has seen
true.
it.
Yes, I had seen like a slim section of the movie prior to
No,
the
but
previous.
the 2012 movie.
Yes, I had seen a slim section of the 2012 movie prior to the previous
Oh, okay. I thought you.
jam session.
Wait, but
No.
for all intents and purposes,
I
now
had seen
you
I had
have
seen
really
the barricade
movie.
sequence and I had seen the end and I had seen them on a computer and not actually on the big screen. So in the meantime, between last week and this week, I saw the whole thing on an actual theater.
In an actual theater?
Yes.
For like prepositions.
Yeah.
So did you guys want me to actually like go down the list of things?
Well,
Do
I
we
think,
wanna-
I think
How
since
many
we,
items
we
do
all
you
have some
have?
thoughts on
Well, I
the
thought we were
movie.
going to talk about like the cinematography and the live singing first, which is not.
Oh, but that's kind of a heavy point that we have to hit because people were asking questions.
Yeah, let's talk about that Hulk article.
Okay, yeah. So there's this amazing article,
Which
and we
will
don't
link to.
actually. Does anyone actually have a link to it in the document?
Yeah,
we don't, do we?
Badass Digest.
While we're getting a link to the document,
Well, I have a pulled quote from like the most central part where the argument is summarized.
Yes, please read it.
Okay, so this is an article about Tom Hooper's Hooper? Is that his
Tom
name?
Hooper, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
Tom Hooper.
His cinematography and how like the camera work affects, well, basically the affect of the audience as it's happening. And well, the short of it is that Hulk does not like Tom Hooper's cinematography, thinks that it is a mess. And these are the following paragraphs where the argument is summarized. So he, Tom Hooper, wanted to take a soulful movie rife with drama and tragedy, telling a truly epic classic story, both in terms of scope and politics. A story that features an emotional personal journey spanning decades, with all the characters singing songs about hope and longing. and he filmed it in a way that conveys chaos and discord, off-kilter worlds, surrealism, everything is going to be okay romantic comedyism, and he overused the most powerful tool of cinematic story control, close-ups, by doing it the entire time. Meanwhile, employing an equal method that undoes that close-up effect by having the characters look directly at the camera, which has the sole effect of breaking the fourth wall and making the audience uncomfortable. And he does all of those things the whole fucking movie. It is such a basic affront to everything we understand about cinematic affectation. End quote. Yes.
Yeah, that's a really, really excellent quote, because it not only sums up, I think, why the movie made so many critics unhappy, but it also sums up why narratively I think it just didn't work very well, because I felt like in a sense, like, there's an earlier quote in the movie about how, or sorry, from that article, about how the director of The Godfather talks about how it's really bad to stick both of your feet in the concrete. Like, you always have to have some sort of like levity to balance out the heavy moments. And this movie doesn't. This movie is just like both feet in the concrete all the way, right? And narratively, that doesn't actually lend itself to really smooth transitions. It doesn't really lend itself to logic in a lot of ways. And especially when you're trying to cut down a 3-hour musical into coherence, you lose a lot, which is, I think, why our notes on the cinematography are also a little bit about characterization and plot. So one of the first notes that we have is the fucking shitty-ass camera work, which Nat just covered. For example, the way
wow,
we
that's
only...
some strong wording.
I'm just reading from the document.
Okay.
The only time we ever got a zoom out, and by this we mean like an actual zoom outwards where you saw more than someone's head and shoulders, was when you got a really fast flyaway upwards. Did you guys notice that when you're watching the film? Like, suddenly, like you had, like you literally had, it was like close up, close up, close up, and then like 3 or 4 times the whole movie, suddenly you got this zoom out, upward pan, and away overhead. And it happened specifically for 2 reasons. It happened, number one, when Jam Valjean reconciled another identity crisis, i.e., like when he got done going, "Who am I?" for the 3rd or 4th, 5th time, 60th time. Or B, when Russell Crowe was singing and couldn't hold a high note, and the camera tried to distract us from noticing that he couldn't hold his high notes by zooming out, upwards, and away. Like, those were the only 2 times that happened. There were a couple of times when we got a mild sweep out of the barricade, but it was 2 seconds long.
Yes, and that's supposed to be one of the most dramatic, heart-rending moments in the musical.
Yes, and we'll talk. That's my next point, actually. Like, so you have
students in the flag. You can't just bypass that. You cannot just stick that into a 2-second shot. We have a lot of feelings about this.
So you have the camera work that's like zooming out for reasons that are unrelated to plot and weird characterization, right. And then you have the fact that the camera would not sit still. It wouldn't linger on anything. It was just like following. I don't know. It was like it thought it was the Hurt Locker or something. You know, like it was just following us around. Like, it wasn't quite shaky cam.
It's all gritty and stuff.
Yeah, it was like, I will zoom in so
right.
that you can see these people are experiencing misery. It's like. It's like misery all the way down, right? And Yvai's absolutely right. The way that Tom Hooper was absolutely incapable of letting the camera linger, especially on the barricade and on all the students. Spoiler alert: people die in this movie, and they die theatrically in the musical because it's theater. But they die in these really dramatic, backlit, beautifully spotlit ways. One of the most famous parts of the musical is when Enjolras, Enjolras dies and his body falls over the barricade, and it falls wrapped in a French flag. So it's super dumb and unsubtle, but it's also like tear jerky.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
There was an insurgent called Apollo. And the man who shot him felt as if he were about to shoot a flower. But that's in the book. That's in the book.
Wait, speaking of the book, though, you only heard about it when you were in 8th grade, reading it for the first time, and now you've forgotten everything. Wait, but
I read it in the womb and deeply identify with Valjean.
The 3 different translations. But I had a question to ask about that, because Asia, wasn't one of your issues also that they retreated into the Corinth, basically, and you thought that they should have died out in the barricades.
Well, actually, I was thinking about it because I've actually been watching the 1934 movie over the past 2 days, and it's jogged my memory about the book in a lot of ways. And one of the things that it jogged was me remembering that that's actually, I think, what happens in the book, right? They actually retreat inside. Yeah.
Yes, so, and it's not like necessarily cowardice. It's just they have nowhere else to go.
Right, because I remember Grantaire dying in Enjolras' arms, basically.
Yeah, you remember. Okay, well, that's all I wanted to remember.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that that's such a powerful moment where they're like knocking on the doors and they're trying to find a sanctuary, but they can't find any. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I wonder, and I understand the visual sort of power of obviously the way that they die, but I wonder how that would have translated to the screen. You know,
we don't get to know though, because again, the camera doesn't linger.
No, but I just mean like the sort of the hit you over the head symbolism of it. Like I just feel like there are some things that you can do in the theater because everything is really small and you have to make big gestures, right? It's the difference between like acting for television and acting for films. When your face is 30 feet tall, you can do a lot more subtly. So I mean, I don't know.
Well, I think the point of this adaptation was that it was meant to be an adaptation specifically of the musical, which had not been done before.
Yeah.
Everything else has been live action without all of the singing. I mean, the 1934 movie Asia mentioned before is probably the most faithful adaptation in terms of the canonical book itself. The canonical book. In terms of the book
itself. Also think about the
itself,
fact that when you have a face that's 30 feet tall, you don't want to spend your whole time zoomed in on it, and that's what they did. You know, like why? What was the narrative point of that?
That's
really,
why I love the Hulk article, because it explains why.
Yeah, it explains why that was so bad.
Yeah, it's a good article.
And I think also, I talked a bit last time, about how Gavroche was running through the streets and how you kind of got to follow him through the different class levels of everybody mingling in the gutter, and that was kind of cool. But then I realized after reading that article that it was very closed in on him and little
that really surprised me. So I was expecting, and I was always expecting more, I guess, sweeping views of the streets, more sort of a panoramic view of the class.
I agree, and with lovely ladies too, they had a bit of that.
Yeah,
you couldn't.
At the end of the day, everything was so crowded. I mean, it was like they wanted you to.
At the end of the day.
At the end of the day.
At the end of the day.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
She'll be nothing but trouble.
Just completely.
At the end of the day, it was nothing but close-ups.
I also wanted to talk about the set design a little bit, because again, going along with the I guess the gritty misery of everything, the set design seemed really, really uninspired to me. Like not even in a we're going to portray misery kind of way, just bad. And there was no I guess
I really liked the set design.
The thing that really this is on my list of things to hate.
I know, so back it up.
No. I haven't mentioned what it is yet. It's Bring Him Home. When they're singing Bring Him Home, and like, suddenly there's this giant eye. Like,
green Gatsby eye.
It's like a Gatsby eye. It's a Gatsby eye on the wall behind Jam Valjean, and it's like out of nowhere. Suddenly there's symbolism in the set design. Where did that come from? Why does it have to be now?
Symbolism in my set design. It did seem. Oh god, this is terrible. But I didn't even mean for it to come out this way. But it was very glaring. Like
it was absolutely glaring.
Even if it weren't an eye, it would have been glaring. No,
I burst into laughter. Like it just totally ruined the song for me because it's Bring Him Home. It's supposed to be like the most intimate, vulnerable part of the entire film almost. And
I understand that. In the book, are they near an eyeglass shop or something? I can't remember. I need to page back and see if there's a basis for that. Or if it's just some subliminal message to give Leo an Oscar for Great Gatsby.
I understand that specific criticism, but I thought in general that the sets were really well done. Like, I thought that the factory scene, I don't know, I was really impressed with the way that was done because, a factory sort of, we have such a sense of what that should look like, but that's not, what actually Hugo is describing. That's not the right time period, but that looked so good.
I think I wound up laughing during the factory too because that was the only one who was wearing color. I mean, Fontaine. Yeah. Fontaine was the only one who was wearing color. Like, and it just seemed, again, it was so glaring, it was just so unsubtle.
But I see the point
that's part of the theatrical elements, I think, definitely. She's supposed to stand out, and you're supposed to get that juxtaposition with this is where she starts and this is how far she falls.
I guess I could see that if it weren't, like, if the cinematography had borne out that this was was an adaptation of theater, like if we had gotten the wide set pieces, if we had gotten the zoom out shots, if we'd seen an ensemble being an ensemble cast, if things had been theatric in other ways, I could have bought those small moments that just felt out of place, because you can't have both gritty realism and you can't have both, closed in shots that are just projecting the realism of 18th century or 19th century France all the time, and suddenly have, these moments of like, I guess, grand guignol that really don't like fit, which is again also one of my things. Master in the House.
But
like
okay.
Master of the House, like what? It just, I don't know. It felt totally out of place to me. Like I had this whole like rant about it that I've sent you guys, because I felt like they took it too far.
Just a second. I'm sorry.
Grander scheme, I agree, but hang on. I think we skipped over something.
Why? In what other numbers or places in the movie did you feel like it was venturing into Gonguignol territory besides Master of the House?
Besides Master of the House, pretty much that's the only time, but that was a huge time for me, because that's one of my favorite numbers.
Okay, I was just clarifying. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and also
I know people who don't also like that number in the musical.
I don't really like it in the musical.
I have heard people who say the exact same thing about the song as it stands in the musical, that it doesn't.
Oh yeah, I can see that. I can see that, but I disagree with those people.
Well, I think the point of I think what a lot of people have with both Master of the House and Lovely Ladies is that they're supposed to be kind of boisterous and wide and sweeping and not as hemmed in as the impression they were giving. There were a lot of bits and pieces that were just gratuitous. Do we really need to have all of these lopsided angles of Angine getting held down and having her teeth poked into, or do we really need to have this creeper cam into Santa Claus getting it on and the bridal suite?
Yeah.
Just things that I wish hadn't happened, because there's so much rich material to work with already that you don't really need to make these dubious improvements at absolutely every turn.
Totally agreed.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay, so yeah.
There we go.
And also with Master of the House, and this has been really borne on me because I just watched most of the second part of the 1934 movie. The 1934 movie is 4.5 hours long, and it's split into 3 parts. The second part is devoted to the Thénardiers, and it follows the Thénardiers in a way that the musical doesn't. And it really sort of drilled home to me the sense of loss that I had seeing in the movie, which was that the Thénardiers don't really get to descend, if that makes sense.
Oh, into the actual pits of humanity.
Yeah, because we see them and they're already there at the beginning with Master of the House. I mean, they're just a farce, and they don't really have anywhere to go. So for the rest of the musical in this movie, for the rest of the movie adaptation of the musical, they're just there as set pieces. They're just pastiche. And it really upset me, because I love the Thénardiers.
Yeah, I agree. There should be a little bit more depth to them than this. And they have a huge role in the book. And also, they're kind of a huge chunk of Hugo's id, because he was very into social justice and just how easy it is for people who are already lower class to sink lower, and how difficult it is to rise up.
Yeah, that's
and
really...
In the book, he does fast forward. He does the whole fast forward. Paris 10 years later, Valjean's doing fine, Cosette's doing fine, because they have each other.
So
and then you see where everybody else is.
Thénardiers are fucked.
Are you assigning a certain sympathy that you think is absent in the film version?
Not necessarily a sympathy,
Development
but a little bit
of the
more.
theme
You should be a little bit more invested in them as more than just
set pieces.
comic relief.
Yeah.
And I very much got the impression that, this is Helena Bonham Carter and Sacha Baron Cohen, starring as Helena Bonham Carter and Sacha Baron Cohen, playing some people whose names we don't even hear.
It reminded me strongly of Tim Burton and Sweeney Todd. Like, it just reminded me so much of everything that we'd see in Sweeney Todd. And I was like, is this because it's Helena Bonham Carter? Like, is that something that just comes out when she's around? But like, but yeah, like I completely agree with Nat, because you need to have a sense. I guess it doesn't matter so much because we didn't get as much of a moment in the sewers.
Can we talk about that though?
Yeah. So basically, in the musical, Thénardier has a number in the sewers called "Dog Eats Dog," And he basically is like, it's a world where the dog eats dog. And he's like, and I look up to the heavens and only the moon shines down. The harvest moon shines down. And it's a harvest moon because he's going through the bodies and looking for profit, which is what he did in the Battle of Waterloo years before. And so you see, like, that, basically that's the whole justification for his character right there. And you really see him as sort of this man who had the potential to be a decent, not necessarily quote decent, but I guess a stable member of the working class who's just sort of become gradually more and more depraved over the years, and that's his justification for what he does. And it takes place in the sewers, which in the musical is actually like really backlit really beautifully by the lighting. It's all like graded and shadowy, and it's really beautiful. And you lost all of that in the musical or in the movie, and you sort of had it seem, the way they filmed it made it seem as though Thénardier actually thought Jean Valjean was a murderer and was scared. So that's why he immediately pointed him to the exit, which is not part of his character. Like, he knows that Jean Valjean is a good man. He knows that because that's the whole thing. He just doesn't care.
But he does, doesn't he still assume that Jean Valjean killed and looted the body?
I don't think he does. I don't think he cares.
But that's why he went to Marius.
He tells Marius that, oh, there's a man that he slew.
Well, I always assumed that he didn't actually. This is my reading of the musical. I always have believed that he didn't actually care whether it was true or not. He just knew that he could blackmail Marius into believing that it was true.
Well,
so he went there.
That's fair.
I mean, I don't think that he's the kind of man to just to give a fuck whether it's true or not. He just sees an opportunity and takes it.
And either way, fear wouldn't have been his response anyway.
Yeah, and it was really weird. It was really kind of awkward because he's just sort of awkwardly, oh, it's that way, which is
and not also
what
going
happens.
back into Thénardier's development, this also bugs me because when back in the day when they wanted to slice the musical down to precisely 3 hours in order to avoid having to pay overtime, some of the pieces that were the first to get cut were from Look Down, which we just fast forwarded to Paris 10 years later, and you're going to cut some of the exposition already. I mean, they cut Gavroche's second verse about, oh, there's Thénardier. He used to run a bar, and now he's got a gang, and
right.
his daughter is on the streets like me, and we're actually siblings, but you don't know that in the musical.
Yeah.
And they cut that, which is already some pretty vital exposition because it tells you a lot about just how far these people have fallen in the last decade. And they cut the beginning of the robbery at Rue Plumet as well, which is Thénardier and his gang going up to Valjean's house because he wants to get some vengeance for letting him
that part
take
has like
Cosette
some of
so
my
cheaply.
favorite lines.
And it has some good interactions too because they very much fast forwarded through that in the movie. All of a sudden they're there and Eponine is screaming. There's a lot more give and take in the musical, and there's a lot more than that in the book itself. She has a whole big speech about how she's not the daughter of a dog because she's the daughter of a wolf and she's not afraid of anything. And
I love her.
yeah, but no, it always bummed me out that development was kind of the first to get cut. And it was a little bit, I was just kind of taken aback that they kept on piling on more and more layers of character development onto Valjean as opposed to onto the other members of this large and varied cast who could have probably done with a little development. But anyway.
Yeah, and that's actually one of my biggest pet peeves because they did it not just to the Thénardiers, but especially to the Thénardiers, but they also did it to Les Amis, they also did it to Enjolras, they did it to Javert, they did it to like the second verse of Drink With Me. Oh my god, I can't believe they cut the second verse of Drink With Me.
They cut Drink With Me, they cut Turning.
Yes, they cut Turning, they cut, all of that.
I still don't understand, I still don't understand what, I understand.
They cut Little People.
Cinematically, I get like why they did what they did with Do You Hear the People Sing, but I don't like it.
Yeah, also the fact that they cut all of these things in order to give what they replaced them with was another solo for Jean Valjean. Like, he really needed another solo, really.
And the scaling of the convent walls and Monsieur Fauchelevent, and also just the various things that I know we talked a bit about this in our first jam session, but there's a scene in the musical where Eponine and Marius are meeting up, and she just starts off with him going, "Hey Eponine, what's up today? I haven't seen you much about."
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh, well, I'm here. The police haven't caught me." And they have a nice bit of bantery moments, and I'm not sure why they changed that in
it was
the
really
musical
weird.
to be all about why Marius is really rich.
Yeah, and it made the relationship unclear to me.
Yeah,
And,
it's like, why are you suddenly in the doorway of my house? And
yeah.
Also, like, by emphasizing the fact that he's rich in disguise, I guess it makes more sense for why he's like, okay, all my friends died for the revolution. I'm going to have, like, a really fancy wedding. But it almost made him seem like more of a dick.
It
Yeah.
really
Like,
did.
oh, you fought for the revolution until you got married, and you're
Also,
having
the
this
fact
fancy
that
thing and it doesn't matter to you.
And we got so much less of the Les Amis. I mean, if you're gonna do empty chairs at empty tables with so much emphasis on Marius's actual like introspective broken heart, you should at least give us characters to care about. Like we didn't even get Grantaire put the bottle down.
oh,
You know-
Grantaire put the bottle down. Sorry, I just need a moment for that
That's like
line.
I know, but that's
All
one
of
of
our
the best
feelings.
lines.
All of our feelings.
Yeah.
Grantaire put the bottle
context.
down.
Jam context. A lot of the preparatory email chain was about what AUs can we write about Les Amis. Winning right now is a 1968 Parisian AU with a little bit of an emphasis on the dreamers. So.
Yes,
Perfection.
without the twincest. Or-
Yes.
Unless there are twins and... No, there are no twins. Only Jolie and Bossuet were
Yeah, I was gonna
what the
say,
Chapel brothers called beneath.
They
but-
also cut a lot of Javert's like internal turmoil at the end when he lets Jean Valjean go. Like he cut one of my favorite lines: "The law is inside out, the world is upside down."
Do
Yes,
what you have to do. This man belongs to you.
Yes, like that's one of the things to me that like without that, his suicide seems really, really bland.
Well, it could be worse. It could be the '98 movie where he handcuffs himself and falls backward into the river, and Valjean walks away laughing. So,
And that's the
Everything
end.
about the
That's
98
the
movie
end.
is a travesty. Everything.
Wait, is this a good point for me to bring in a quote from my good friend?
Oh,
Who's your-
defending. Yeah.
Defending the film Javert. And I say this, I asked her if I was going to do this, and I haven't heard back from her, but I'm going to say it anyway, because I feel like you know, someone needs to stand up for Russell Crowe.
Voice.
So my friend says, this is my friend Eleanor. She says, finally saw Les Mis last night, and my I guess unpopular fanish opinion is I really loved Russell Crowe's Javert. And she says, he was so gently assured. He was so black and white. He wasn't evil. He wasn't grandstanding. He wasn't hungry. I've played Javert, power hungry. I've seen Javert played all of those ways and versions of this, and he isn't. He's just a man who believes that man's law is equal to God's law, and when he realizes he's wrong, he can't hold the pieces of the world together anymore. And it's heartbreaking to see a man who has tried to do what he thinks is right all his life realize he had the world upside down, even though he doesn't say that. And he didn't have a strong voice, but I actually loved that his voice was small and pretty and gentle. He's not a bully, even though Valjean may seem that way sometimes. I never did, and I think it is a testament to Crowe. So there you go.
I appreciate that
That's
reading.
an interesting perspective.
I appreciate because Laurel and I were talking. She couldn't be here tonight, but we were talking about how we sort of, I guess, rooted for him every time he was on screen because you could tell he was trying so hard.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and I guess this sort of gets us into the singing, but that's a whole separate topic. We can just come back to that later because we have to talk about Russell Crowe and the singing and what it did to the orchestration. But
Are we talking about the emoting right now?
Yeah, we're talking about the emoting. Like at least I am. Because
No, I
feel-
can talk about the emoting. Go ahead.
because I feel like he didn't quite get to emote because he was so focused on his singing, you know, like he was so focused on getting the notes right, and he's not like the most musical there, but he was trying so hard, and he did a really actually musically he did a better job than a lot of the people who were more trained. Like he hit notes very perfectly, but he wasn't acting to me, so it was really kind of weird.
Yeah, I kind of wish we'd gotten to see a little bit more of his.
He was
I guess his
when he was
his
really
inner
anima-
struggle, but
when he was really super animated was when he was fighting Jean Valjean and when he was fighting with all of the young men from the Les Amis. So we have to wonder why he only got really animated when he was around strapping young men.
okay. Well, I wasn't going to say that, but
Is this a rhetorical question?
he
I don't
really
understand.
is a fascinating character because he's just taken for granted that the law is exactly right, and he's never considered that it might be anything but the right way to go. And when
Yeah.
Valjean throws his entire center of gravity off, he realizes that maybe he has not been following the righteous path, and he can't deal with it. And I didn't really get any of that. We got that gratuitous shot of him kind of walking along a ledge and seeing
Yeah,
stars.
like, and it didn't really
And there was that other
symbolize-
article. What was that article? No, sorry, that article you linked earlier in the day about what was it
The
called?
live singing.
No, it's called "Why I Walked Out of Les Miserables."
Yeah,
Right, that's the one about the live
that's about the
singing.
live singing.
Yes, and
Yeah,
there's a
it
line
was-
in there about how it seems like he's. Oh, let me find it. Yeah,
It's
and
right
for
there.
me, key moments in the score, the vocals just weren't raw and real enough. They weren't sung from the gut. A decades-old rivalry between Hugh Jackman and Russell Crowe's characters underpins the entire musical, and they needed to carry the film. Instead, they sagged under its weight.
Yeah,
I don't necessarily agree with that word for word. But
I agree that they had moments where they sagged. I really actually thought the fight when they were randomly jousting.
Oh,
yeah,
Lord.
like the fencing.
That's not what jousting is.
Sorry.
You don't mean jousting.
I mean fencing.
that would be an
stick.
AU.
Jousting would be amazing.
Jousting AU.
Yeah, a prison guard's tale. I'm pretty sure
Can Hugo be Chaucer here? Like, that would
Yes,
be amazing. But
of
anyway,
course.
but getting back on track.
Oh my god. Yeah, Heath Ledger plays Enjolras.
Oh,
No, now we're sad.
too soon.
Okay, but anyway.
Sorry.
But yes, the fencing.
I didn't even mean it like that, you guys. God. Yeah, so I thought that part was actually like one of the few times where they were really both really animated and into, I guess, the chemistry, the potential chemistry that they had together. But other times it was just like Natalie kept saying before the episode, why is Russell Crowe in this movie? And that's kind of how I felt. I didn't want to feel that way. But that, I guess that does get us into the singing, because to me it comes back to the way that he was focused on singing, and he couldn't quite. I know he's a good actor. He's an excellent actor, amazing actor. But he just didn't get there to me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know how to explain him in this movie, and it bothers me because
I felt like he was just kind of going through the motions.
But he's smarter than that, you know? I feel like he knows, like, he played his role a certain way, and I just don't know if he could. I don't know if the music part distracted him so much that he couldn't quite get where he thought he was going, or if he actually wanted
into what's its intentions, and that's never gonna lead us anywhere. But
well, we can talk about the direct. I mean, because we can just blame it all on the direction in the end. Ultimately, I would be happy to do that.
We just didn't like it that much.
Damn you,
Can
Tom
we talk
Hooper.
about the minor characters now?
Yes.
Because I know that was at the top of our list, even though
There's no
It's
such
actually
thing as
been a lot
minor
more.
characters.
So we talked a little bit about Gavroche and how some of his expository verses from Look Down get cut, and how a lot of the background information for Les Amis and various secondary characters get cut. But there's one ami who never makes it into the musical.
Barrel!
Yeah, Baharel.
I love you. I love you dearly.
I took
French
yeah,
101.
right? So
Baharel.
we
Why
just,
is
I would just
everything
like
in
to have.
French? I hate it.
I know. Makes me feel so miserable. No, I don't even know. But I just wanted to have a moment of silence for that one ami who did not make it into the musical, who, in the novel, Baharel is an 11th year senior who has vowed never to become a lawyer and is renowned for using up all of his money, loafing prodigiously, and wearing foolhardy waistcoats. So I have a theory that he dressed Enjolras that day and lent him his
Wearing
tacky red and gold vest.
You shut up about the vest. I am so sad. That is fuck that.
Extremely pro-vest.
That is the omission of the film that I miss the most.
There's no red and gold vest.
Oh,
best.
no.
I just want to know why, it's completely jumping topics, but why the hell was Eponine literally always in the fucking rain? Like, why did she sing on
That's a huge
always? Like, it is. But I'm sorry. I just thought of, like, I don't know.
But you know the answer to that question already.
It's pathetic fallacy.
It is pathetic fallacy because they have to put both fingers, feet, and hands, and every like possible limb in the concrete, right? But it's again, this goes back to the giant fucking eye and like the Fontaine being the only one with color, like just so much ridiculously over the top
didn't mind
symbolism.
You
I
say
think
that as
there's
a
a
fan of
time
the
and place
musical.
for various theatrical elements, and
Right, but-
when it's based on a stage show, you have things like the revolving stage, and you have things like the dramatic
Well, if we'd
sewers,
actually
what
gotten the
brings
revolving stage, I would have
And
been
they kind of-
100% for it. Like, I would
Right.
have been like,
I
bring
think
that shit on.
Maybe the problem isn't so much that it's theatrical in the wrong places. It's just not theatrical in the same places as the musical, so it threw you. So
No,
when you're
I
expecting
agree.
moments of
It's that-
theatricality, you
You
didn't
can
get
be
them.
theatrical without being so unsubtle that it's like flogging a dead horse with it, over an already
Dies.
weeping audience. Like it just, I mean,
I'm just gonna say his body falls over the barricade and is wrapped in the French flag.
I know that's
I'm just saying.
completely.
Well, instead of that, we got what I believe I think Asia calls propeller guy, Javert.
Yes,
So we
Propeller
got
Guy
that.
Javert.
And he got more
It
screen
just
time
shows
than
that they were-
Ozeros's death.
Yeah, and it shows that they were missing the point, because the whole point of Javert's death, and the whole point of Eponine's loneliness, it just, they're missing everything. They're doing everything wrong. Tom Hooper, you suck.
I don't think there's a reservoir in this scene anyway. Like, is
Probably
that there?
not.
Is that whatever?
But the point is that
Bahorel made it.
the tragedy of Javert's death is not how he dies. You're not supposed to go, oh man, I wasn't moved before, but since he broke his back, in that dramatic propeller guy from Titanic way,
Ouch.
all the tears. You're supposed to be totally moved by his inner turmoil, and you're supposed to be shocked and appalled that he actually is killing himself. Like that moment in the musical. Like, I'll never forget the first time I saw that. I was like, what, 10, 9 when I saw Les Miserables
Was it
for the
before
first
or
time?
after you'd read
Seven.
Was it
Yeah.
before
Well-
or after you'd read the book in its entirety?
It was before. It was well before.
Well, and you're
so I
wondering
would've
how
been-
they're going to pull this off on stage, a guy throwing himself in the river. And...
It was actually really, again, it was all done with the lighting, just like the sewers. And
No,
it was
I know,
really
I'm
dramatic.
saying, but like if you go in
I know,
wondering how in the
I'm
world...
telling the audience in case they don't know.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. But yeah, like, it
Wow,
was
we're
really
worked up
effective.
today.
We're just
It
glad
was-
to be live.
That's also true. I know.
It took us 2 hours to get here, damn it. But yeah, like, I just feel like it was the way that death was done is an underlying problem with the whole way the musical was done, because they focused on, like, I guess, small details. Like, you can be theatrical without, I guess, missing what's really important in a scene, and without, like, skewering your focus to the point where you're doing close-ups for the wrong reasons, you're doing special effects for the wrong reasons. Like, it just that's what feels uneven to me. It's not that the things are theatrical; it's that things are done theatrically with an unsubtleness that doesn't really relate back to the overall theme of the musical.
And on that note, I think one of the other things on the list of shortcomings, for lack of a better word, was during Valjean's death scene and the lines they changed then, and how instead of bringing things sort of full circle for Cosette, they focus all about Valjean, who has already had quite a bit of character development as it is. And Asia, did you want to talk about the line that you mentioned?
Yeah, this is actually, I was
on your
saving it,
list.
but yeah, that's my single biggest pet peeve of the entire musical, because
Which is saying
you were
something
saving
as
it?
we've learned. Which is
You were
saying
saving
something.
it? Sorry.
no, that's okay.
That seemed like a good segue.
And no, it's totally fine. I got to talk about why Eponine was wet all the time, so I'm happy.
Montparnasse could talk about that too. I don't even know.
I also wanted to mention that Francis Ruffelle is whore number 2. Like, they couldn't even make her whore number 1. She got to be whore number 2, which shows you how much they prioritize their female characters, I guess.
Hey, well, then, you know what? Maybe she wanted to be a whore number 2.
Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe she wanted to get to wear the cool makeup and...
Yeah, but
walk
couldn't she be
around.
whore number 1? I mean, she's Eponine. She was the original Eponine in the original Broadway cast and the original London cast. And,
I'm sure they weren't like, no, you only get to be whore number 2 to gain your place. Like,
I don't trust Tom Hooper anymore. I don't believe I just don't trust him not to make her a whore number 2 and not to see anything wrong with that, because he did not see anything wrong with taking Fantine's resolution with Cosette and throwing it away. And that is my number 1 peeve with this entire movie, because the entire point of Cosette's, like, narrative arc is trying to find out what the fuck happened when she was a little girl, and what the fuck happened to her mom, and what is her father doing, dragging her all to these places. And so at the very end of the musical, she comes to him and he's dying, and he says to her, "Your mother gave her life for you, then gave you to my keeping."
Mm.
And that is the first time she's ever heard those words. That's the first time she's ever heard him mention her mother that we know of. And it's this big mystery suddenly revealed, and that is not only crucial because it unites Cosette with her mother, which is, obviously Fantine's dying wish was to be united with her daughter. It sort of spiritually connects them. But it also is a huge plot resolution, because otherwise, without that, Cosette never finds out, even though she asks him repeatedly in the musical, will you ever tell me about my past? Instead, in this adaptation of the musical, Tom Hooper has replaced that line, and I guess Cameron McIntosh and Alain Boublil too. How do you guys say that? Boublil? I always say Boublil, which is probably not right. Boubli, thank you. Alain Boubli. They replaced it with some throwaway line about how Cosette basically gave Jam Valjean a reason to be good. No, she didn't, because he'd already decided to be good after the bishop gave him the silver. And two,
he was working on it, but yeah.
And B, we already got a stupid song on a carriage about it. We didn't need to have it reiterated to us.
Oh, I hated that song so much.
I really liked that song.
I
thought it was necessary in the film.
No, I don't think it was. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't think it was necessary at the expense of all the other things that we lost.
Yeah, I concur. But on its own, it was sweet. I just wish we hadn't lost other things.
I don't think that it was more important than the stuff we lost, but I think that it was important because otherwise, it's just like, I don't know. It always kind of weirded me out. Why, like, I mean, maybe that's because I was emotionally immature when I saw it the first time, and I was like, he's not even her real dad.
Somebody made a manip on Tumblr of him with little Cosette and Valjean's looking very perturbed, and with the text, "Did I just purchase a small child?"
Pretty much.
Right? And in the 1998 version, in the 1998 movie, which I watched today, and is fresh in my memory, there's like the weird sort of child trafficking sex slave element.
Oh my god!
Weirdly like.
Oh god, like, yeah.
It's weirdly played up in that scene because he's like, "How much?" And they're like, "For the girl."
Oh god, no!
Would you like her to come play on your lap?
Yes. Yes.
What is happening on screen?
So maybe that's what the song is there for. It's like, no, guys, he's not a creep. He's just gonna sing.
If that's the only way that they could, fine. But that still doesn't change the fact that at the end they literally took away all of Fantine's like narrative power, and they they basically made Cosette just an agent for Jean Valjean to be a good person. Like they made her entire identity in the plot about him, and not about finding her own past. It just
And she also
so
helps keep Marius on track because Marius decides life is not worth living without her.
So basically, like,
and in the book, Cosette is basically, she's like this vessel of goodness because Hugo was very big on believing that if a man has the opportunities to be good, then by God he will seize them.
But at least in the book she got her answers. At least in the musical she got her answers. And this she didn't, this denied her that, and I'm so full of rage.
Well, I think that's also really important because, like, this story, the whole thing doesn't just end when Jean Valjean dies. I feel like for Hugo, it's a pretty big point that after this generation dies, the next generation comes front and center, and things keep moving on, and political progress happens, and just the future is always, it's an advancing line. And so when you take that away from Cosette and you just effectively, her future doesn't matter so much since her past also doesn't matter anymore. You take away that sense of the futureness that remains even after Jean Valjean has died, which I think does a huge discredit to the sense of moving forward that you get from the novel.
Yes, that sounds great. I can't speak to the end of the novel. No, I can't speak to the end of the novel, but that sounds lovely.
Well, I just have strong beliefs about Les Mis as a political, statement. But
can we talk about that actually? Because Yash left us a question in the document.
Yes. What did
she
Yash
said,
say?
if you didn't read the book, do you think any political action in the film made any sense at all? I've read the book, and I still don't think the political action in the film makes any sense at all.
Well, it fits right between the July.
Why they're mad, or why they decided to do what they did, or why it failed.
Why is everybody so angry?
Why everything?
Historically, it fits between the July Revolution and the deposition of Louis Philippe.
But the thing is, if you hadn't read the book,
If you are a novice to French politics,
Right.
are you just going, why is there an elephant? You know.
But she had read the book and she still doesn't get it. Is that what she said?
Yes. But she specifically asked, if you didn't read the book, do you think any political action in the film made any sense at all?
Well,
I mean, obviously,
have, in Look Down, they have a little bit of exposition with all the peasants being peasanty and talking about how, Lamarck is going to die, and he's the only one who ever speaks up for us. But I actually think in the movie they cut the part. Did they cut the part where Enjolras is talking about how on his funeral day they will honor his name?
No, it's there. I
Is
think.
it there? Okay, because they do storm the funeral.
yeah, I think it's there.
Yeah, it's there.
Okay.
It's there. I mean, but like, I think that 19th century French politics doesn't make any fucking sense to begin with. I mean, I think that I think that the 1832 student revolts are such a random thing for. And like we talked about this before, right?
Well, but it's kind of like a generation.
We talked about this before, that like people who watch the movie like assume that it's the French Revolution where they win, and then they get really pissed off.
Right.
But they also don't really go into the context of Napoleon, like, I guess, Bonapartism, and like they don't really talk about how much the student revolution is based on, you know, a resurgence of Bonaparte politics. And I mean, not like you really.
Admittedly, it is hard to shoehorn in, you know, Royalist and Ultra and Bonapartism and Marius's ever-changing ideology and Marius's tragically dead father and all of those different elements that coalesce. Sorry,
Bonaparte is Democrat.
Yes, gray shade of a quiet mouse color.
The other way around.
Gray shade of a quiet mouse color, which is what
That's what
Coifferac
it is.
describes Marius's political affiliations as.
It makes no sense.
Well,
Right.
Marius is still figuring out who he is, so I'm
Right,
actually
it
very
makes him
sympathetic.
the entire
Politically,
story.
personally,
Yeah.
sexually.
He's just figuring
Grammatically.
things out. That's him, linguistically. Right, but where were we going with this? I just totally... Oh, right, and like sometimes...
Revolution.
Right, and sometimes the people who are like with it sometimes are like, oh, I thought this was like the July Revolution of 1830, and I thought something bigger was going to happen. But no, it's just a tiny little insurrection that didn't get anywhere. It's a sad story.
It is, and in the book, the chapter introducing the Amis is called a group that narrowly missed being historical.
Yeah.
Like, they don't even make history.
And sometimes they don't even make the musical.
Morel! Can you say his name again?
Bauer.
Oh.
Well, the H would be silent, so
Bachel.
I just feel so bad for him. But
But like, what do you think that does to the whole, like, our understanding of social class, not politics, but I guess
well, the
social
intricacies
meaning?
of...
Yes, thank you.
Well, I have different opinions on that because, for one, I have like thoughts on how important the political process is to the novel, and then I have like other thoughts on, is political action important at all to the musical? Because
I honestly don't think it's a toss-up for me, because I think that if you read the book, you can understand the musical better, but I don't think you need to understand politics at all to get the musical and to enjoy the musical.
yeah, that's kind of also my opinion.
I agree with that, but I also think there's a lot of Hugo's own projecting in there, because he did write Les Mis when he was in exile in the British Isles from France, after he had turned his back on Napoleon, or Bonaparte III, for going from president to emperor, and Hugo just wasn't having that.
Right, which is also, this is the question that I've been meaning to ask Yeats for several weeks now.
To be fair, if you'd asked it 2 hours ago, you would have gotten a better answer, because there would have been a lot less. There would have been a lot more wine in the bottle that's next to me. But I'll do my best now.
That's good though, because now we have all drunk the wine, and we're going to appreciate your answers so much more. Appreciate your answers so much more.
I expect a lot of appreciation.
You will get your appreciation, mademoiselle. Mademoiselle.
Oh, God. So, wait, what I wanted to ask about was what the political climate was like in the 1850s when Hugo was writing Les Mis. Because, well, I was wondering if Was there a feeling under the Second Empire that yet another revolution had been, quote unquote, stolen from the hands of the people, like they had been after the July Revolution of 1830? So by the time that the action in the novel is happening, 1832, well, not all of the action in the novel, but 1832, like those insurrections and rebellions and just general unrest, like all of that has a lot to do with the fact that they just had a revolution and it didn't go the way they wanted it to, because the bourgeoisie just like kind of turned it into their own beneficial thing, and now the people aren't benefiting from it at all. So like that's why there's all this discontent going on. So I was wondering if it kind of parallels Hugo's own time of composition and whether they felt like a similar betrayal.
Well, I mean, that's a very good question, and it's a question I am not especially well suited to answer, even though I tried to do some reading up on this. But I mean, I think that I tried. I'm really sorry. This isn't going to be as good as you deserve. But I mean, also, I think it's interesting to look at not just the politics of the period, but also the politics of Hugo personally.
Oh yeah,
because,
yeah.
I mean, by the time Hugo is writing this, he hasn't been in the country for a long time, right? He's in exile. He's in where. I forget. Is he in Guernsey? Yeah, he's in Guernsey because he wrote this like really inflammatory pamphlet and got in a lot of trouble, and no one's really happy with him. So I don't know to what extent he's actually writing about sort of the political system that's going on in 1850s France, or what he's writing about is his imagination of the system, right? Because I mean, again, it's interesting that you mentioned this sort of this break between the bourgeoisie and the working class as being part of what happens in 1830 under the July Monarchy, which is what, for people who aren't like super fluent in these terms, that's what they're protesting, is like the citizen king of Louis Philippe, right, who takes over in 1830. So I mean, definitely Napoleon III is a bourgeois emperor, and definitely. The Bonapartist system is a system that benefits the sort of the little stakeholders, the people, who
the small businesses.
Right, the small businesses. Exactly. They're the people who, who really benefit, especially at the beginning of the regime. So, I mean, I don't know necessarily how informed Hugo is, to what extent, right? I mean, at this point, and someone else maybe knows this better, but I'm pretty sure he's like a massive celebrity at this point, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
His leaving the country is a big deal. He is a symbol, I guess, not just within the French context, but his books are being read all over the place, So I don't...
He actually had his son adapted Les Miserables for the stage the year after it came out, and it was banned in France.
Okay.
Interestingly enough.
Right. So and he doesn't come back to France until the Third Republic is founded. So he's gone for almost an entire generation. So I guess my answer is that without more context, I can't really tell you for sure, but I definitely think that there is some element of that, of the idea. But they do vote in Louis Napoleon, right? Like he's the president. He's
it's about the understanding that he'll only have a 2 or 3 year term, I believe, but then there's a coup d'etat and he becomes
It's super quaint. It's super quaint.
Yeah.
It's super quaint how they believe that a Bonaparte is going to only be in power for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, but he's the third. He's watered down a little bit. Sure.
He's not even like the third. Makes no sense. He's not
the nephew, right? Is
right?
he nephew or?
Yeah, he's the nephew.
The original.
Yeah, I mean, and I think
no one can rule innocently.
Yeah, and the system is so is so sort of, there are so many different factions going on right now, and I think maybe that's why the musical is almost helpful, because you're like the people versus the rich, and that's it, and that's all you need to know, because like you're like simple. No, some of these, like there's a as you said, there's a Bonapartist Democrats, there's which republic are you talking about? You have an Orleanist king, but you also have monarchists who don't want him there because they're of the different faction of the monarchists. And then, all of these sort of, the way that the revolution in the 1790s was factionalized keeps coming up. So I think in some extent, like, it's almost better if you watch it and you don't have all of that, because then you can just be like, the people are rising up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. If you don't have that context, then you don't realize what a blip on the screen it is, because you're right. There were revolutions left and right. And in the grand scheme of things, this one, didn't even make history, technically speaking. So I guess it is a lot less depressing going in without all of that knowledge
Or
bogging you
even
down.
more depressing, because then like it's a huge big deal and they still all die and like nothing
Well,
works
I mean,
out.
if you go in and all you know is that, oh, this guy Lamarck died and they're gonna crash his funeral and try and overthrow the government because he was the only one who cared about the poor people. All right. I mean, I think at the core that still gets Hugo's social justice efforts in there. It's got the kernel of that in there, even if it doesn't have all the massive piles of context surrounding it.
Right, it might simplify it, but yeah, I think we agree that it doesn't necessarily misrepresent.
Yeah, I mean, and, you know, I'd never really thought of it this way before about how small this one little revolution is just in the grand scheme of everything else. But, you know, it's kind of, I don't know if that makes it more poignant or more miserable, but...
It probably does. At this point, basically anything makes it more poignant and more miserable.
I also think it frees up Hugo just from like a storytelling perspective, right? Because he's not writing about a successful revolution. He's not writing about names that you'll recognize. He's not writing about sort of something that's added to the glorious canon of sort of the, you know, the progressivist French march towards greater liberty. He doesn't have to deal with all of that stuff. He doesn't have to deal with, right? And also like the messiness of success. You know, let's say Les Amis did win. What kind of what country were they going to be building? Who was going to be in charge of that? Like, what kind of legislation?
Did they go work for the government?
The Republic. The Republic. That was all. And
yeah, but did
right.
Yeah,
which we don't know which number, but you know.
Yeah. Right.
The Republic 2.5.
It's beta version.
Oh.
But also, I might be completely off base about this, but wasn't Hugo not involved, but didn't he sort of accidentally witness the student uprisings in 1832? I feel
that's not something I know.
I don't know, but I do know that he was he supported the ones in 1871, even though he was in Brussels at the time.
Every revolution is a revolution that Hugo supports.
But he was no, he was hanging out in Brussels when the what was it called, the Paris Commune happened, which was like the first instance of
that's like the real shit.
The workers and communists and socialist Marxists all seizing up and overtaking the government, and that lasted a couple months, and then over 30,000 of them were massacred. And yeah,
that's a lot of people.
That was a lot of people, and he wrote a really famous poem about it, and he like invited survivors to come and stay with him in Brussels, which is where he was hanging out at the time. But
and then a party host.
Sort of, it
didn't go over too well because they're like, we can't just go to Brussels then.
Something that I think is interesting is that, you know, it all the political action of the story kicks up with the funeral of General Lamarck, but like when Hugo dies in 85, he is feted in the same way. He's kind of brought in as the first. It's one of the moments of like nation building in a sense of like the nation as an imagined construct, or the Republic is that there's this huge funeral cortege and he lays in state and he's put into the Pantheon. So it's, I don't know, I obviously, you know, we're talking anachronistically, but it just reminded me watching the movie of the way that, like, you know, Hugo is kind of the figure of the Republic. Eventually, you know, he gets that for himself, what he wrote about in fiction.
Well, that actually is a great segue into a next. That's a great segue. No, that's okay. I was just gonna say I'm glad you mentioned that because it was it's a great segue to the next question that I had, which I think we're sort of leading there anyway. But there's a quote from the novel where he says, "So long as poverty and misery still exist on earth, work such as this may not be in vain." And my question is, what, if any, social change did this novel actually bring about? Like, what did he actually manage to do? Obviously, if he's being feted like a national hero, then something must have happened.
Well, the book got banned by the Catholic Church, and the play that his son wrote based on the book got banned in France as well. So there was that. But honestly, Hugo's political career kind of blew hot and cold. He was a peer of France at one point, and then he was in exile, and then he came back, and everybody was happy, and then he left again, and then there was another uprising in 71.
Well, I guess I was mostly just asking about specifically this book, because the whole point of this book is to critique social structures, right? And I mean, did people write over this book? Did people, like, you know, read this book? Was it like the Harriet Beecher Stowe of the 1830s? Like, seriously.
But how do you want to measure the impact that it had?
No, I mean,
I didn't hear that.
Go ahead.
I missed what you said. I'm sorry.
Who is you?
Eva, I was saying something.
Yeah, Eva.
Oh.
What?
I mean, it just seems to me like a lot of the same cycles kept on reoccurring, with a different kind of uprising, and then the Second Republic, and then the whole issue with ousting Louis Philippe, and then Napoleon III, and then he went into exile, and then the Franco-Prussian War, and then the Paris Commune, and then the Third Republic. There's just constant upheaval, and it does ultimately result in the working classes seizing power, but at a really, really terrible price.
Yeah, I don't know that this book sort of. Well, I mean, I don't even know that Uncle Tom's Cabin really started the war, but I don't think that this, the fact that this book was published and that it took several more years for the Second Empire to fall, like, I don't know.
Right. I'm just I'm wondering. I mean, obviously, we read Uncle Tom's Cabin as problematic as it is because it was a huge conversation starter and it got people in the North to go, oh, maybe we should be paying more attention to maybe we should actually be doing something, right? Like, there was no. And I'm just throwing that out there because that's an equivalent moment of someone trying to address social change in a way through literature in a way that had, we can see had definite results.
I think you're asking for a lot of really concrete evidence that probably doesn't exist. So, like, you would be satisfied if we were like, oh, and there's this record of this person's diary where it says he read Les Miserables and then decided to stage a revolution, and that led to the...
I guess what I'm getting at is
maybe
why...
not quite so cut and dried, but...
I don't think that there's... I'm going to say no. And I'm going to say that not knowing anything about the reception of the work, except in really generalist terms, but knowing a little bit about 19th century French history, this is just... I mean, this is taught as a kind of... This is taught as a primary source in that it's effective, like, to show you, like, shit was really bad for the poor and, things just got worse and worse and worse and no one really gave a shit about them. But it's not taught as, like, a turning point. I don't think that, I mean, and again, knowing very little about what I'm talking about, which is the way I like to work it in general.
Yeah, Yeats.
Treating it as a primary source makes more sense to me than treating it as, like...
a pamphlet?
Yeah, as a social pamphlet, right? Because I guess because the social pamphlet is the social. Oh God, I guess it's like maybe a better comparison of it would be to Elizabeth Gaskell's North and South, because she had which if you guys are not familiar with that, it's this really, really long novel written in England.
Richard Armitage is in the BBC version.
Richard Armitage is in the BBC version, and it's very, like, smoldering, and a lot of people consider it as, like, an alternative to Pride and Prejudice if you want, like, long-suffering Regency romance, UST. But apart from all of these smoldering, and Richard Armitage does smolder in the BBC version, I have to say.
Smolders.
I haven't seen Gimli, like, the dwarf thing, so I don't know if he smolders in The Hobbit, but...
He smolders.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. But she's really critiquing all essentially working conditions in Manchester, and the whole thing is a class critique. And obviously, it didn't actually change policy, but it's a really good way to get into the history, like the class issues of the period. But I would never call it like a game changer for British politics or for British industry.
I get that vibe from Les Miserables too, actually, because he does. You can't even say he sneaks in little pot shots, because he goes on for pages and pages and pages about the fall of Louis Philippe or about the Battle of Waterloo and the kind of ramifications they had on the country. But it does really get you into the zeitgeist of those various times that he's talking about and how each incident builds on top of all of its predecessors in order to bring about the crucible of incidents that happened in 1832. So it's an interesting... I mean, you hear people complaining all the time about all the huge digressions and what a windbag he is for not being able to hold back, but I almost think it's kind of a vital part of the reading experience. And I actually dug up a quote where he says, it's from I believe it's a bit after we meet Marius, but it just says, we must not deny our country in the past any more than in the present. Why not accept the whole of history? Why not love the whole of France?
Yeah, and I think that's
and he
that's
did
a
base
really...
Marius on himself, so I don't know if he says it. Yeah. And if you rearrange the letters, it's
Mary Stu.
Marisu.
Marisu.
Nice.
Marisu.
Marisu. But
And I know that, Asia, I might have yelled at you before about this a lot because it's like a dead hobby horse that I keep beating until it dies
yelled at
again.
me?
No, at
Asia,
me.
I think, because we were talking about the viability of political change as expressed by Hugo in the novel, and basically whether the form of change that he presents is supposed to be perceived as like really futile, as throwing like eggs at a boulder basically, or it's something that we can emulate and like take as a political pamphlet. And
Well,
I know that I keep talking about this, but I really feel very strongly about it, that it's not that I think that he does want political change to happen, but that he doesn't know exactly how it happens on like a national scale, or how to make it happen on a national scale that doesn't lead to tragedy on the edges.
Yeah, I kind of get that too. Like, I get the sense from his writing that he sees himself as more of a documentarian, I guess, than an agitator, if that makes sense.
That's an interesting way of putting it, actually.
The reason what I was getting at with all of these questions was just, why is this novel so popular? What makes it the masterpiece that has been turned into film dozens and dozens of times? Like, what is it about this particular novel that just grabs people? If it's not the politics, if it's not necessarily that it's recording a specific historic moment, maybe it's all these things together. I'm coming back to the characters. I'm coming back to the fact that even above the politics, it's the characters and the way that he weaves their lives together.
I was going to say maybe that it's like it's the most Hugo of the novels, and like he's such a figure, right?
Can you say that again?
It's the Hugo-iest of the Hugo novels, right? Like, I don't know. I mean, in the same way that, like, why do we read I don't know, what's like Great Expectations? Why Great Expectations? Because it's the Dickensiest of the Dickens novels.
It is the Dickensiest.
Right, and I think that the author as a personage, like, this is this, or like, I don't know, maybe like maybe
Thomas Hardy. Why the hell do we read Thomas Hardy? Because
no, wait, we'll take
that's different. That's not that's not what I'm saying. Is that it's not why do we read this author? I mean, I think that he is a contemporary, such a popular contemporary figure. His life does parallel sort of the events of the 19th century, and he's so involved in them, and he is a very, I think, eloquent spokesperson for a lot of the 19th century ideals. That's why we read him in general, and if we're going to read one thing that he wrote, this is the one to read.
Yeah.
It would be the cynical way of saying it.
Well, and it gives you a lot of little insights about the shortcomings that were going on during these time periods. I mean, just things like his opinions on the prison system. You have Jam Valjean, who steals a loaf of bread and ends up in jail for 19 years. And then on the other hand, in Paris, you have, like, Thénardier breaking out of jail one night. You have the rest of his family going to jail for a couple weeks and getting out, and Patron Minette, who, are actually legitimate criminals, getting incarcerated and then popping right back out again. And it just has all these little instances peppered throughout it about how the system, such as it is flawed by taking decent people and making it hard for them to live decent lives, and taking people who are not so decent and making it easy for them to continue being not so decent. And that's just one of those things that manifests in a ton of different ways throughout his works, but it really comes on thickest in this one, for me, I think.
Yeah. Can I also sneak in a little bit about just art and its possibility for social change in general? Because so the way I wanted to lead into this was, how sometimes people, like, in the design community or outside of the design community, say things like good graphic design can change the world. Like, people say things like that. And I think what they mean when they say it isn't that people look at an element of design like they look at Les Miserables. Like, people aren't going to be looking at a work of art and saying, this is making me want to get up and tear up the cobblestones. Like, it could, but I don't think that's what they mean. I think there's something about it's kind of it's okay, I'm not being very articulate, but it's more of a shifting of paradigms, I think, is the way that the artistic revolution works. So by that, what I mean is, like it changes not necessarily what you want to do at that very moment with your physical body, but it changes the way that you look at the world fundamentally. So there's this bit in, I will totally get to this author a little bit more later, but Emma Gavit wrote A Passion for the Absolute, which everybody wrecks left and right, I think, deservedly so.
And this is a fanfic writer, not an author.
Oh, right, yeah.
Not an 18th century British woman.
Right, yes, sorry. And we'll link to everything, of course, in our roundup. But there's a sequence where, there's a long sequence where the students of the day boo Racine's play off the stage, and then later on, when Hernani is on stage, because Hugo is actually a character in this, which is one of the things that I love, they applaud Hernani when it's on stage because they're all part of this movement to espouse the romanticism of the period. And the way that they put it is that once you recognize that the systems of classic art, like the classicism, the unities, all those are just basically bogus, and that they too are man-made structures that don't necessarily have any more right to exist in nature than any other systems that could be alternatives. Once you realize that, that's when you can start to affect change. So once you realize through romanticism that all these rules about art that we thought we had to follow aren't things that we need to follow at all, then that's the moment when you realize that, oh my God, maybe the political order itself is something that we can destroy and overcome and rebuild in an image that we think is more representative of what we see. So I think that, so I think that Les Miserables as a novel, as a representative of the Romantic movement maybe, is a good specimen of how it leads people to perceive the world around them differently in that sort of, very vague, conceptual, fundamental way. This has just been my opinion. I'm not saying that this is the prescriptive answer. I just, my opinion, period. Everything I say is my opinion only. But yeah, that's what I think.
So Musichetta, Musichetta.
Oh, Musichetta. What were we going to say about her? I mean, I love her to bits. But
strong female characters. Speaking of romanticism. No, this is totally a segue, because romanticism.
Oh, that's true, I guess.
Victor Hugo was a diehard romantic.
Yeah,
I don't remember her at all, so please tell me who she is.
She's very brief.
She doesn't even have, she doesn't actually appear, but she is referred to by Jolien Bossuet. In the narrative they say, that Jolien and Bossuet were very good friends, and they shared everything, even to some degree Musichetta. So, take that as you will. And she's a girl that Jolie is completely in love with at some point.
And she has him wrapped around a little finger. Yeah,
and he's talking about her in lovelorn tones to that, that one Ami who's not in the musical and wears foolhardy waistcoat. Say his name, because I can't. And Jolie's talking to him about Musichetta and about how literary she is, how she has eyes like a fortune teller and small hands and feet. And then later on in the narrative, it's like a little cherry bomb about how Jolie and Bossuet are so close, they share everything, even the same mistress to a degree. And that is why Musichetta is amazeballs just by existing, even though she does not actually have an onstage role in the book or the stage.
So that's your Musichetta lesson for today.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's she also lives, as far as we know. It's a female character who doesn't die.
Yeah, well, she doesn't appear, so.
So can she ever really live? No,
can she be said to have?
Whatever. I think she opens up a hat shop and.
Oh, is this inside your head the happy ending for Musichetta?
Yep.
I like it.
Wait, is this the point where Nat just starts writing fanfic lines?
Because I love that you're invested in, like...
Well, because it just kept happening. Like, I would say something and you'd be like, oh, ho, ho, said Julie, and I'm like, really? Go on. Like, don't have comments there that.
In really unproductive ways. But I think that, yes, if you give me something, I will make trash out of it. So,
Oh.
but Mrs. Shara, we love her. We love her.
All right, yay.
Wait, can we
What?
skip to can we skip through a couple of characters because because there are some more political questions through the characters
Ooh.
like Gavroche and what he represents politically and
Oh, God, yeah.
and what Thénardier's survival represents politically, which
Oh God, yeah.
which I think is pretty obvious because I think and this may be more clear if you're familiar with the musical or the book. Like the question is like the guy who swindles everyone he meets and eventually gets in on the slave trade makes it out alive.
Oh, that's
really?
my question. Oh, duh.
Yeah,
Well, I think they addressed that directly in the musical, actually, with the line, "Masters of the land always get our share, clear away the barricades, and we're still there."
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Which-
really succinctly put, actually.
Yes, which is something that again I thought got completely lost in the adaptation, like just because their characters were so farcical that you didn't really.
Yes, it's played for comic relief with them being
Yeah.
physically escorted out of.
But that's
Marius'
actually
bloodline.
it's not comical at all. I mean, they're
No, it's
saying
not.
we know what we have to do to survive and we're going to do it, and that's why we're the rats are the ones on top in the end.
Right.
And in the Marius is supposed to, I believe in the stage version, he punches Thénardier, but then he throws money at him and he tells him to go because in the book his father told him, "Hey, this guy saved my life on the Battle of Waterloo, so if you ever see him, be nice to him." When in reality, Thénardier was just picking through his father's pockets on the battlefield because he thought he was dead, because
Right.
that's what Thénardier does to survive. And
Yeah.
the thing is, he actually does survive because he knows what he has to do in order to get by.
Right. And that's why Dog Eats Dog is so, to me, that's the darkest moment in the entire musical because it's Thénardier admitting, like he's showing you that he's completely self-aware. He's not just sort of ignorantly being greedy and snatching at every opportunity. He's doing this completely with, an amoral conscience because he knows that's the way to survive.
Right, and that's that's also an example of how incredibly broken the system is. That if you play by the rules, you can't get anywhere, and that's why
Exactly.
there's so much needs to change, which also ties into how big the problems are.
And that's why Thénardier is such a genius character, and why I got really upset.
He is very smart, canonically.
Yeah, like I really feel like the Thénardiers are obviously they're a character trope, but they're a really brilliant and really necessary character trope because they're the kind of character trope that can be such a scathing critique of social systems.
Madame Thénardier faces down Javert when he tries to break into her house, and then she goes at him with a paving stone.
I know, right? Yeah, and I think it's also that they're character types that aren't laid on top of the narrative. They're character types that rise from the narrative.
Yeah,
So,
they always remind me a lot of the. God, I haven't read this book since I was in high school, so forgive me.
Did you only read things in high school?
Yes,
Did you
I
just
did.
Give up the
Eighth grade.
Together?
Eighth grade.
Cities. Okay, it's Tale of Two Cities. The woman, the evil woman who like has the rose.
Oh,
He has what's her face?
What's Madame Defarge?
Yes, thank you. Oh my God, how did I
Oh,
forget
talking
that?
about a
Madame
different
Defarge. Yeah, but like talk about like evil rising from social class structures in 19th century France, right? Like that same type of manipulative, seizing the opportunity and do it with complete self-awareness about how to navigate the system. Like they always really struck me as very coming from a very similar place.
And in both the book and the musical, the Thénardiers and their ilk are constantly referred to as beetles or as vermin. But, vermin and insects, that's what survive.
Yeah, isn't it like a commonly repeated fact that cockroaches will survive nuclear disasters? Is this a thing?
Yes.
Yeah, and then you have Cosette, who is the large.
Cockroaches
and
in
she can
Clean
be
Wank.
fine.
The only
And
thing that can
rats.
survive.
Rats can survive anything. Like that's just sort of the and you always talk about the worst characters being the rats, being the ones who survive because they don't really have any morals that will get them killed.
No, I still think Azelma, the one surviving Thénardier child, is only a product of circumstance, and I hope she gets a happy ending in America, even though her father gets into the slave trade.
Yeah, right.
Slave trade. Maybe she runs away and opens up a hat shop with Mususheta.
What is with you in this hat shop?
That
I
would
love
be
it,
a nice
though.
fanfic. I would read it.
I would buy hats from them.
But remember that's what Shoujo Cosette did, right? Where they
No, I don't, because I've never watched Shoujo Cosette.
Yeah, but I told you all about it.
But you don't endorse it. It says so.
I don't endorse it. But I do endorse the part where she and her mother open up an inn back in Montfermeil.
You did tell me about that.
Yeah,
yes.
That's sweet. Well, it's not a hat shop, but
I mean, Les Miserables isn't supposed to be sweet, but I can endorse that.
Yeah,
I can.
Right. It's just it makes us happy.
Oh, and speaking of happy minor characters, who else? Oh, the cross-dressing guy.
I was curious on what you wanted to say about him, because Evi was like, we have to talk about the guy.
Could you just explain that? Could you explain that?
I can, yeah. I'm mostly just baffled that Hugo didn't go into, a page-long diatribe about this fellow, because when Eponine is on her way to the barricades, there's this throwaway line about how she switched clothes with a young man who found it amusing to dress as a woman, and that's how Eponine gets her clothes. And goes to the barricade incognito. And nothing else is said about this mysterious cross-dresser. And I just think it's fascinating that of all people to get a one-liner in a Hugo novel, it is this guy who sounds like he's really interesting.
That's pretty epic.
I mean, I wrote a fic about him once. Back
Well,
in the
maybe
day.
this would be again Hugo the documentarian.
Like, why? How can you not expand upon that? I don't know. I kind of stand for this guy. Even
He had a lot of plot threads to balance, okay? He's just like, he probably in his head, in Hugo's head canon, he had a whole, series of subplots for this guy.
It's like one of the parts that he cut that ended up in the annotation.
Yeah, it's like Stephen King's
DVD
iceberg. God. Can you imagine how huge Stephen King, Victor Hugo's iceberg was? Like, if we saw, think about all the stuff that he gave us. The metaphor is that Stephen King says that you should always have your writing should be like an iceberg with all the stuff that's above the water is only 10% of what's actually in your head.
Right. The only parts that we get from him that were cut, that are floating around the internet, are two little bits about Courfeyrac. And I'm happy, but there's got to be more somewhere. Where do we find?
We need the DVD extras.
Right.
What are the two little bits about Courfeyrac, and why do we care?
Hey.
No, I'm asking because again, I don't know who any of these are. So.
Well, it's not really relevant to the plot at large. I think people suspect that he was just doing it for character studies, maybe. They're just silly little snippets of dialogue where he talks about his particle, and then he has a little conversation with Zelma about the English word to kiss.
He talks about his particle?
His particle, his name. I was going to clarify that.
Right.
His father's name is Monsieur de Courfeyrac, but Courfeyrac drops the de just because everybody else is doing it, and it's associated with the older generation.
Right, he gets
it's a class
I was
thing.
so confused.
Yeah.
I was like, is that what they're calling it nowadays?
It's a generation thing, but it's also a class thing. Having a de in front of your name implies that's how you can remember.
Yeah.
If you somehow forget whether or not Hugo is liberal and Balzac is a conservative, just remember that it's Honoré de Balzac.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, they're not really relevant to the novel at large. So, so there's probably a lot that he left out. Yeah. Including the bits about the crossdresser. The mysterious crossdresser. Yeah.
I have to say, just as a complete aside, all of the, I guess, the reminiscing I've been doing about Hugo lately has been making me very fond of him in new ways, which I'm very grateful for.
That's nice. Yay!
Yes. I mean, I've always been fond of the musical, obviously. It's my second favorite musical of all time. But
now Hugo also. Did you? What kind of cover did you guys have? Because I had the hardcover with his face on it.
Oh, I had the brick. I had the paperback gray.
Oh, okay. Because now I just whenever I think of Jam Valjean, I think that he looks like Victor Hugo, and it's not the way it works. But I just imagine like all the white beardiness.
Oh, can I talk about the 1934 version now? Because he's so not Jean Valjean-y in this, and it's really refreshing.
How is he not Jean Valjean-y?
Because Jean Valjean in every edition I've ever seen is the white beardy dude, and he's sort of frail and washed out. And
wait, you've watched the '98 though?
No, I haven't actually.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, that's kind of an exception. But talk about 34.
Well, I'm sure Liam Neeson would not be this guy, because this guy actually looks really brutish and thuggish. He's really when you first see him, he's very, he looks like a strong man at a circus. And he's got like he's clean shaven. He doesn't have a beard. He doesn't look really old and grizzly. He just looks really thuggish. And he looks like the last kind of person in the absolute world that you'd ever expect to morph into a gentleman. And it like really like before, like every other adaptation of Jean Valjean I've ever seen, you can always see like the gentleman lurking inside of him, right? Well, in the 1934 version, you really can't. And it's really surprising to me. I've been really enjoying it because like even now, even when he's like transformed into a gentleman, you can feel sort of like he feels slightly uncomfortable in that skin. Yeah, like he's never nice. Yeah, he doesn't inhabit that role really well, and he's always sort of like really torn by it. And they do a lot of other things with that identity crisis that are a little different than I've seen in like adaptations of, I guess, post-musical adaptations that I've seen, you know, because like in the musical he's very, I don't know, it just seems like he sort of comes into his own when he becomes the mayor and he becomes this, you know, the saintly figure almost naturally, like he was always born to it, right? But in the 1934 version, he really struggles with doing the right thing. Like even after the bishop gives him the silver, he like steals a coin from this kid, which I think is in the book. Yes, yeah, it's in the book, but he really like agonizes over it, and he gets to see him sort of filled with self-loathing. But then and again, like when he goes to rescue the guy who's been Sean Mathieu. Yeah, it's right there. It's in my sign. Sean Mathieu, thank you. Sean Mathieu. He gets there, and even though he's just raced all the way to be there, he's still not sure what he's going to do. And you could see him just sort of clinging to this idea of, you know, he's not saintly at all. Like you could see him struggling with that conflict. And I think the fact that he's not physically the way all other Jean Valjeans are that I've seen has made that really, really a lot more vital to me. It's really cool.
I really like the sound of this adaptation.
I'm really enjoying it. Everything is so much. It's so. I mean, it's 1934. There are, I guess, tiny hints of expressionism. Or not. God, I'm sorry. Forgive me, film lovers. I'm kind of drunk.
Sorry,
expressionist. Just like long shadows, really like angular cinematography, like sort of exaggerated. You know, not a lot. Just
is it an American film or a British film, or is it in French?
It's in French. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. It is in French. Okay.
Yeah, it's in French in 3 parts by somebody Renard. I wrote it down here. I should probably know, but it starts with a D.
He's not listening anyway.
Well, Raymond Bernard. So, merci. And it's 4.5 hours, but they and the first part is called The Tempest in the Skull or something, or The Torment in the Skull. Like basically it's all about his like internal crisis, but it's not done in like a really obnoxious, I don't know, I find Jean Valjean obnoxious a lot of the time.
So they take the chapter titles from the book?
Do they?
It seems like it.
Okay.
No, there was like a Tempest Within or something.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, the first movie is called, or the first part of the movie that they split into its own thing is called The Tempest in the Skull or whatever. And yeah, and then the second one is The Thénardiers. And I'm not sure what the third one is because I'm not there yet.
A group which barely missed becoming historic. I'm probably quoting that incorrectly, but the sentence stands.
Nice. That would be awesome. Oh, right. But also this movie is available on Hugo.
Hugo Plus.
On Hulu Plus. Maintenant, allez-vous.
I want no part of this. I'm just checking out. None of this has my approval.
Oh my god.
You stop mocking my first year French. No,
it's just to all of the above.
Wait, it's available on what?
It's available on Hulu Plus.
Jesus. Oh god. Can you get a Hulu Plus trial version for?
I think so. I can probably like, I don't know. Maybe I can gift you something. I don't know.
Oh yeah. But anyway, yeah. I really want to watch it. I was completely sold when you mentioned the part about the singing. Because
Yes,
I
yes.
never in a million years would have expected that to make it into any adaptation.
It seems really, really, like, it's been jogging my memory about a lot of things from the book, which, again, I don't remember because I haven't read since I was 13. But it's been, I've been like, oh, I can barely remember that. Like, I remember the part about, like, Cosette's cloak, where they lied and said they bought her the cloak and they hadn't, and like, the doll, and yeah, like, the singing. And Les Amis is really, really nicely done because they actually write, like, they write the ABC on the wall and stuff, and it's just, it's really darling.
With like, permanent marker?
I don't know. It's a set design. And yeah, and they sing the song about what is it?
J'aime bien ma mère.
J'aime bien ma mère.
Yeah.
Like
Citizen,
my heart
is the
belongs to my
Republic.
mother. Or...
Yeah.
Aww.
But my mother is the Republic. Citizen. Citizen. Marius.
Marius
Who cares
bowed
about
his
your
head.
notice, so.
They do change. It seems like the most significant change is the way that they show the backstory between Marius and like Eponine and Gavroche. Like, they all kind of know each other.
Yes.
But I'm not really familiar with, and I don't really remember how that relationship develops in the book anyway. So.
So you're good.
Yeah.
You're happy.
Yeah, but I do remember really liking the way that Eponine just kind of walks into his room and starts fixing her hair, because that is exactly what happens.
Oh, nice. Yeah. That's in the movie. Also, they in the first part of the movie, they spend like half an hour at least on the trial, and they give you a lot of Champmathieu, which he's really, really adorable.
Actually,
I was really pleased by that.
Like Jam Valjean? Because I was curious about that. Like, can they be confused for each other?
I am kind of. I can't answer that right now because I got really confused in the credits because it seemed like they were saying that the same man played them both. But I didn't. I may have read it wrong, and it didn't seem to me that it was possible that the same man could have played them both because they were played so differently. But what do I know?
We'll be clear on that.
Yeah, so I can't answer that.
So you endorse this version?
I do endorse this version. I was really surprised at how into it I was.
Official seal of approval.
Yes, yay!
Finally find an adaptation that we like. Nice. Okay. So,
wait!
No, you're okay. Yes.
Hello,
What? Oh,
this is me. I'm
Yes.
upside down.
yeah. What's
Yes,
happening?
just a second. I am showing you this. Can you guys see this?
Yeah.
This
You
is
have to keep talking for it to show up on the screen.
This is the very first scene. This is the very first frame of the movie. The entire 4.5 hours. This is the first thing that you see. Isn't that amazing?
You realize
They're
that this
just
is
like-
going to be completely lost to anybody listening to us on the podcast. but
Yeah. Okay.
Describe it.
It's a statue. It's a picture of a statue that looks miserable, and it looks. Basically, it's a statue that's like holding. It's like Atlas Shrugged or something. Like
Or
it's
just
like
Atlas.
Atlas. Yeah, it's some. It looks like he's blind in one eye. Like maybe crows have been pecking at him. Like maybe he's in Hades, and he's got like some sort of weird willow wreath on his like head. So he's obviously like suffering, and he's carrying something huge on his back. And he's like trying to like wipe away his tears from his non-existent eye. Possibly, I think, because it's about to fall.
Yeah.
And the scene opens with Jean Valjean like lifting the statue. But this is like the very first thing that you see, and it's like, hello, shoes in the concrete.
and yet you like it.
Yeah, it's really, really good. But I saw this, like, again, this is the first frame you see, and you're just like, okay, so
I know what's
misery.
coming,
Yeah,
Okay.
misery.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to put it back on.
Yeah. and-
Upside down,
yeah.
Mises, hello.
Okay, yeah.
I know we've talked a lot about sort of the canon, whether or not that's the movie or the musical or the book, and I don't know if there was more questions. I was wondering if you'd talk a little bit about the fandom and about sort of stories, because like
Stories.
my direct question was, and it came from the conversation that we had in chat, right, where we were coming up with like crazy AUs. It's like, how do you write a canon about us, like, and maybe, you know, I know this because I've been in other stories, and maybe it's just like Harry Potter, we just got to ignore it. How do you write stories where everyone dies? Like, how does the fandom deal with that? Is
First
it
of all,
all?
fix it.
There's a lot of ground to cover before
Is there
all
fix
the
it
dying
fic?
happens.
There
And-
is
Yeah, and there's
Those are the
AU.
questions that I have. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
many years. And also
Please,
just
please,
really bittersweet things.
And just filling in all the blanks in the backstory, because a lot of these people spring into the story kind of fully formed, and there are a lot of spaces that you can go back and fill in.
So it's a lot of downers.
Right,
No,
and then
no,
sometimes you just don't go that far. You
Yeah,
just
or
don't go to
sometimes-
June of 1832.
Yeah, and sometimes, someone survives the barricade. Or sometimes the
Really?
barricade happens differently. I mean,
Oh, okay,
there was one epic AU that was like, what if the Amis actually won back in the day?
Did they, go into government?
I don't remember very much about it. I just
They form a
remember-
committee for public safety.
Oh, my favorite! That would be amazing!
Are you, and that's sometimes what I think about. I'm like, man, I totally would have just, killed a bunch of people.
Yates was one of the 12.
love that.
I absolutely would have been. Yeah.
This is probably a vain question because I don't think that the fandom in general has the attention to Javert, Jean Valjean that I do.
Stop being so...
Prescriptive?
No.
Well,
I'm
this is
saying it's based on.
this is just you being sad, right? You wish there were
Yeah,
more...
I definitely don't think that based on what I've heard that there's as much attention to the Jean Valjean Javert side of the the canon
could be more.
as there could be, right?
Yeah.
And I personally would love that because I love that ship. And I the thing that I've always wondered is, are there AUs where Jean Valjean just doesn't go back and lets the guy hang? Because that seems like a very natural place. Because I would.
There's one AU where Javert goes with him to get Cosette,
Oh, interesting.
and they end up taking her together.
Two daddies, Cosette has two daddies.
Amazing.
Oh my God. I need to
stealing
find
Cosette.
a link for it.
Yeah, I
Stealing
need to read
Cosette.
that. I need to read that.
I need to find a
Could you
link for
imagine
it.
Javert being Cosette's dad?
Please,
I can't even
woman.
imagine.
Oh, this is
She'd be
this is
if she
pretty cool.
but she broke curfew. She'd be grounded for 10 years.
You know the rules.
It's I feel that they would weirdly be aligned and stuff like that, and then they would look at each other.
They'd be like, "Why do you agree with me?"
Amazing. Oh my god.
That is, I love it.
I would read that in a heartbeat. Please link me that.
Yeah,
What you said about letting the guy hang. So in that storyline, so Jean Valjean would live his life of lies as the mayor, and he would and then the plot would happen between him and
I
Javert.
always wondered because he I'm just gonna let the semi truck pass by. He says to the court, right? He's like, I'm not going anywhere. You guys can come pick me up at any time. But he's also promised Cosette to go get, or he's also promised Fantine to go get Cosette. So what does he think is going to happen to her? What does he think he's going to be able to do if he's also being like, yay, come arrest me, I'm good. What does he think is going to happen there? That doesn't really make sense to me. That's always been this one giant, what was he thinking? What was going through his mind?
But if that question were easy for him to answer, his hair wouldn't have turned entirely white in the span of that one night.
True, but I'm just saying that seems like it would be a really good conjunction point for an AU to take place.
Yeah,
because it's obviously
I
a
agree.
point where he's not really, he doesn't really know which way he's going to go. He obviously thinks he's going to be around to take care of Cosette at some point.
That's super
But yet also
fascinating.
thinks he's going to just be okay, come arrest me, I'm good, right? So yeah,
That
I don't know.
would be a really long and really involved and really awesome story.
Or, it could just involve them, meeting on the road to wherever the trial is and then having
Calgary.
sex in the cave or something.
Or it's
Oh.
or it's a modern nanny AU. Javert, the meanest nanny ever.
Yes, he's just or
Javert
maybe
Poppins.
Oh, no.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I love it.
oh my god.
I mean, they kind of dress similarly.
Dowry.
Oh my god.
Is this what you were expecting, Yeats, when you asked about stories?
Yes.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah,
I just wanted to
would
know,
seriously.
do people rate those AUs?
Yeah.
Please
Well,
tell me they
that one-
do.
Yeah,
I want
that
to
one
read
But
makes
them.
not
sense
even just that,
now.
Les Amis AUs, right?
Yeah, fix it, it definitely happens.
Yeah, or even not necessarily fix it, just thing that delves into what are the families of these.
Oh
boys
yeah,
like?
right, those
Or-
are sad.
How many secret girlfriends are there? But
So many. But I don't know, I feel like mostly this fandom does a good job of writing fake girlfriends. Well, not fake girlfriends, but invented girlfriends. Eva, do you remember people being bad with OCs? Because I couldn't remember.
I remember a couple of tropes back in the day. One was that everybody got hit by a truck.
What?
No, nothing.
Trope. Yep.
But no, one trope was that like Fuyee would always have a dazzling, accomplished sister or two, or for some reason that seemed to crop up a lot. Fuyee having a dazzling sister, and but that's just eventually that just became something that people were more likely to make fun of than was actually being written. But on the whole, I don't remember too many egregious things. Like, I mean, I think it's all just an intrinsic part of any fandom is trying to hit the right balance of an OC. I mean,
Right. But I just feel like maybe I'm being biased, but it just feels like we were in this fandom so long ago that you would have expected like an early 21st century fandom to have not maybe reached like the same consensus regarding OCs and female characters that like maybe we take for granted now. So maybe I'm just comparing it unfavorably to other
Wait,
fandoms.
do you mean an
or
early
fake-
21st century fandom?
That's what she said.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought she said 20th century, and I got
What is wrong with you in the centuries, Asia?
Shut up.
None of your centuries are in line. Yeah,
Hey,
but so
I said 19th century every time tonight. I had to think about
Eventually,
it.
eventually, you said the 19th century.
Hey, it's the effort that counts, right?
it's the alcohol.
Shut
well,
up.
I think any fandom is gonna have OCs that are a little bit grating or a little bit too good to be true, but that's just part of the process, and it definitely doesn't mean that if
Oh yeah, I
can
feel like
completely
those
sense
It's
that.
even me, right? Like half these people are OCs anyway for all intents and purposes, because if
You
you
keep
only know
saying that.
Right, but no, seriously, like if you only know the musical and you don't know half of them unless you read the libretto, then what the hell difference does it make,
take
right?
your point. I take
Well,
your point.
then it's kind of tricky to write about them if you don't know anything except their name.
That's
But
why
I'm
you
saying,
read
like,
a
if
ton
you-
of other fic.
But
Right?
what
That's
if you
how it
come to
works.
the fandom? What if you
I
come
love
to the fandom and you're
fandoms
just
so
like,
much.
yeah, but what if you come to the fandom and you have your idea already in mind and you're just like, I'll make Jolie number one.
What do you
is
mean
that his
number
name?
one?
Yes. Well, the one with glasses and the one without glasses, like they're the
Okay,
same person, but yeah, that's my point. Like, how would I know that? So maybe I just want to make them two different people, and that's okay.
It is okay. It's totally
It's fine.
Nobody's
Who said
saying
it wasn't okay?
Yeah, it's totally okay. Who are you arguing against? Why are you so
You're
angry?
unspoken prescriptivism.
I'm not. Oh my. Wait. Okay.
Now,
wait,
did we
stop.
have an actual question we were addressing, or did we get a little bit lost in the shuffle here?
We're always.
Well, we were
lost
talking
in
about
the
shipwrecks eventually.
All right,
Daisy.
can
Oh,
we?
yeah, we're
Because
gonna
I need
get
to
into
go.
that.
I still need to wash my hair.
Oh, okay.
And I still
Eva
need to go to
really
bed.
needs to wash her hair, but you ate the burrito, so that's taken.
I
care
did. I
of.
was eating a burrito when we went live, like an
Eva has
hour and a half
long
later.
to-do list for today. She's a busy woman. But yes,
Yeah.
to
and
accommodate your hair washing.
we still also need to talk about the singing because we never got around to that. But yeah,
Oh Jesus!
Oh wait, shouldn't we get to that before the fic recs? I feel
yeah,
like-
we don't really have a lot to say that we haven't already said.
I'm pretty
Oh,
sure we
live
What did we
singing.
not cover about the singing?
Well, I
The-
think it's just like what are our positions
We
basically.
talked about it
Well,
last time too.
We didn't really.
The live
No,
singing?
the specific thing that we didn't talk about is the orchestration and the effect that it had,
Okay, well I don't
yeah.
know anything about.
because that's one of the things that didn't really get touched on in that the article that we linked earlier. But just the fact that what do you guys think about the live singing? Yes,
Wait, when
no?
you say article that you
The
mean
Why I
article
Walked Out of
about
Les
the live.
Miserables.
Okay, that one. Well, I thought
Yeah.
it was. Well, I don't really know anything about the orchestration. I guess I just thought the live singing was a little gimmicky. Personally, I felt like it was kind of a thing where they were like, "Oh my god, it's live singing! It's so real and authentic." But then I would have preferred it if it were just better singing. I guess.
That's a lot of what that article touched on too, and
Yeah, I
they also
agree.
mentioned the orchestrations tending to swell when it seemed like a singer was having trouble hitting a certain note or wasn't hitting a note strongly enough. And they
Yeah,
mentioned,
that was really noticeable in Javert.
yeah.
Um,
They also talked about how sometimes it seemed like Hugh Jackman was gonna try and reach for that last big note, but he didn't quite
yeah.
get there.
yeah.
But Asia, you like the live singing, right?
I really liked it. I really thought that it was, especially the ensemble numbers. I thought they were really, really wonderfully done. Like, and I couldn't really. I thought the sound engineering was really, really good. Like, I couldn't really tell that it was live in terms of like
Oh.
watching lip singing. Like
Wait, I have a question.
The only part that I could tell that made me know that it was live singing was the orchestration, because the orchestration couldn't keep up with them.
Okay. Wait, I have a question. When you say that you thought the song singing was done like better, does it have anything to do with the fact that those were mostly musical theater people?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that like it didn't bother me at all that some of the singing wasn't was unprofessional, because I mean we've had Chicago, we've had other instances where people were not professional singers but were singing musicals, right? Like that's not really something that bothers me. What bothered me in this particular instance was the fact that the orchestration just kept getting in the way, like it kept distracting me, because it was so obviously trying to follow live singing. Like they so obviously scored the orchestra, like I guess recorded the orchestra over a pre-existing live track for audio, and it was really, really clear that the orchestra was trying to keep up with a tempo that was going all over the place. Like, and they were just following, instead of somebody like, I don't know, standing there with their baton going, follow my tempo,
Oh, this subtle stuff.
They apparently, I guess, they had a piano accompanist follow the singer. They at least should have tried to conduct the hell out of that shit, because what would happen is that like you could hear the tempo jumping around, and I, being really familiar with the musical, I couldn't really follow. Like I would just get distracted because I'm like, what the hell kind of tempo is this, And at some point the orchestra would overpower, just like Levi said. At some point the orchestra would kind of obviously be trying to catch up. And I felt like whenever Javert did anything, it was like the conductor just didn't even try and conduct. He was just sort of like, well, man, do what you can. It's every man for himself, strings section, do your worst. It's just kind of chaotic. And
I wonder if that's your familiarity. I mean, I think that it's definitely a problem, but like as someone who hasn't been listening to the musical like a lot, since I was a kid, I didn't notice it as much. And maybe, it's just the ear for it, but I really did think that I don't know if it's the orchestration. Sometimes the sound sounded smaller than I wanted it to be, and I don't know if that's the same thing that you're talking about. But sometimes,
it's part of it. It's not the same thing, but I definitely noticed the sound sounding smaller because at the moments when the orchestra like overpowered the singer, it was really noticeable and kind of awkward. And my feeling before, like when I just seen the barricade sequences in the end, that my feeling had been that maybe they were doing it to try and get the feel of a period orchestration. But
you mentioned.
Right, that's what you said last time.
Yeah, I don't think that anymore. I think that they probably were doing it just because they were essentially trying to compensate after the fact. They were trying to compensate after the fact for a single soloist following their own tempo at their own pace. I think that was really badly done. And for I guess reference, I am a trained musician. I've studied voice at a semi-conservatory in college. So I've been ear trained. So I have a lot of like ear training background that's going when I'm listening to this stuff, that it's hard to turn off. But I think even more, like suddenly that adds to the chaos of the whole musical. Like, because if the orchestra can't, I guess, like take the lead and I guess steadily, I guess give you a steady tempo for all these parts, like it just adds to this feeling of upheaval and even suddenly, even if you're not recognizing, oh, the tempo is changing, like it sort of makes, especially with Javert, his part was really, really super uneven tempo-wise because he just sort of kept jumping around all over the place. But I have to give him credit because his notes were really good, but the tempo was awful, and it just sort of makes it really unstable. It just feels unstable, and it just sort of added to the whole effect. That's my opinion as a sort of competent musician. Sometimes competent.
Well, Well, can I take this moment to also rescind an opinion that I expressed in the last episode? Is that creepy?
No, go for it.
No.
No, I just
no, it's not creepy.
Oh, okay, but I shouldn't
Join the
do
crowd.
it. No, I just think it's pretty. I feel like it's kind of creepy to address it, but we're really always hungry for feedback, so we just kind of Well, I just wanted to. Okay, I'm not going to actually address it, but I just wanted to say that no, it's creepy and irrelevant, and I don't want to be that person. But I just wanted to say that you know, I my opinions are in flux, and sometimes I say things, and I just kind of the inertia drives me to espouse opinions that I don't actually hold. And I just want that statement to apply to anything and everything I've ever said in the past and also the future. Okay. Yep. No, that's it.
I think that sort of applies to all of us because we're always
I feel like
we're always talking theoretically about things that we don't actually feel when faced with them concretely.
I think so. I think it's a lot of like hypothetical devil's advocate arguments going on in our heads at the same time. It's like whatever I speak just happens to be what I'm saying at the moment. It's not like a deep set, diehard belief that I would execute other people for. I think. Yeah.
In other words, if you take away anything from any of our podcasts ever, not just regarding Les Mis, but regarding anything that we say, I guess probably my main thing would be that I think that all of the rotating panelists, all the regular return panelists on Fandom Spotting are very much like open to having their opinions changed and open to like the critique is more important than actually arriving at a conclusion, if that makes sense.
Okay, yep, PSA. That was our PSA. Yeah, but oh my god, we still have so much that we didn't talk about. Why does this always happen to us? It's the worst.
We can do it. We can get through it.
But Eva has to wash her hair. What about her hair? Her beautiful blonde hair.
Also, I fell asleep like 5 minutes ago. Just you know.
I have a lot of hair. It's true, and it's the middle of the night.
We just have to go through. Okay, so
And I
we
have
just
work
have to
early.
go through the Vicarex for Daisy, and
Who's Daisy again?
oh, Daisy is Daisy.
Our friend.
Yes, our friend.
No, do I
Daisy's
know
a friend
her?
of the show.
Da-
I don't know if you know her.
Is her name just plain Daisy?
It's Daisy like no, it's Daisy like this. Daisy. Oh my God, I love you, Daisy. She's a Chicago fan, and I've known her forever.
She
I just
asked
can't remember
us-
her Twitter at this moment.
Okay, I was just
But Daisy knows her own Twitter, so it's probably
Yes.
All
okay.
right,
But anyway,
what we
we
were
have that. But
Daisy Diversions. It's Daisy
Okay.
Diversions.
Daisy Diversions. What we're also going to talk about Marius's political opinions and also Gavroche and Monsieur Mabeuf and
Oh, yes.
so many things. not that it's going to run very long, I guess. I don't think we have a lot to say, she said.
Okay, so you get 2 minutes for Marius's political opinions and Gavroche, and then we get 2 minutes for Vicarex. We can do it.
Is that the way it works?
Well, I
allotted
mean,
speaking time?
how much can you really say about Marius? I mean, personally, I think he's young and he's figuring himself out. And
Yeah, I think it was just that Asia was saying, and also interrupt me if I'm misrepresenting you, Asia, or just actually represent yourself. What was it that you were saying about Marius's political opinions?
Well, earlier we were talking about the whole, well, we kind of briefly mentioned it, his falling out with his granddad over, I guess, Napoleon
His father.
Bonaparte. Yeah, thank you. His father. Well, his granddad, right? Because his father died.
The falling
no,
out
it's
was
his
about
father.
his father.
His grandfather kept him from seeing his father, who.
Right, we were saying that the falling out was over his father.
Yeah.
Okay, yes. And over Bonapartist politics. And, like, he's essentially sort of splitting with it's like a generational split that occurs. But the question that we got was from Nat's friend, who wanted to know why at the end, like, and we also really
My
mentioned
actual
this.
friend.
Like,
Over
why was
sandwiches.
why did he have such a lavish wedding? And that was actually my question too. Like, why? Because if you don't actually understand what's going on with him and his granddad, because that part gets cut out of the musical.
Okay.
Why does he have such a lavish wedding? Why isn't he, honoring his friends by, I don't know, donating their, having something donated to charity or something?
By donating his marrow to the Red
Yes.
Cross.
Well, he
Exactly.
had PTSD and he just went along with what his granddad wanted because he was glad to be alive.
I think
And-
that's the crucial part of Marius's character. He kind of goes along.
And he does.
Yeah.
I mean, and he's been estranged from his granddad this whole time because his granddad kept him from knowing his father was alive and knowing that his father loved him because he was so worried he would grow up to adapt his father's political
Right.
affiliations, which eventually he did, and his grandfather stalked him through his
Right,
time.
exactly. And when
Because
you
he thought
say that,
he thought he
yeah.
was seeing a girlfriend, and he was really crying at his father's grave, and he's like, "Oh fuck!" But
that's actually, I have like a whole different point to make, which I'm
Yeah.
not going to make. No, I can't because it's really long. I wrote an entire paper about it. It was not a very good paper, but it like about how political identification and romantic love are conflated in the novel.
Oh,
and
yeah.
like treating his father's grave as a girl.
Patria.
Also, right? Patria.
My
Yeah,
mother.
and also Patria, my mother, and all of that, and
France before pants.
Always.
yes,
Group Gourmet. Hey, we love you.
that's right. Right, and also Asia, when you said that they had a falling out over like Bonapartist politics, that's also really important that Marius didn't just arrive at this identification with Bonapartist politics and then argue with his granddad about it. It's because he loved like his father, and he was identifying with his father so strongly that he also kind of slid into his political beliefs. So for Marius,
right.
yeah, right. For Marius, political identification is very much a product of circumstance, I feel like. And he's always kind of just figuring himself out, like we said earlier. So it's
Well, that's
not...
kind of why it's interesting to me that he does get, the lavish, genteel, bourgeois wedding in the end.
Well,
His
it's because his grandfather wants it, and he's been so estranged from people, and his grandfather.
No, I understand that, but like symbolically, in terms of
I
like
see.
where his political affiliations, wind up at the end. He's unscathed from the barricade ultimately. I mean,
Well,
traumatized.
my personal opinion
Well, and
is
it's
that
also partly
he...
Cosette too. I mean, he wants to do right by her. I mean, it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
it's like Valjean, giving up eating black bread because Cosette said she would eat it too if her papa
Sweetheart.
didn't stop. And what?
Yeah.
Also, maybe there's a meta element, right, of the revolution failing, and then the only person that lives
Right,
is
yeah,
the sort of
yeah,
the
yeah.
semi-Bonapartist, and
Yeah,
it's like,
thank
wow,
you.
wow.
That's exactly what I was getting
be
at.
careful
Thank
what you wish for.
Right,
Yeah.
and that's also really important
Fat old
because
Louis Napoleon.
it's all just gonna swing right back around again. But right, this is what I also want to say about Hugo's Hugo's undecidedness regarding revolution as a means of political progress, because it's not that he doesn't believe in it, but it also just never really works the way you want it to. So for him, I think it's really important that you have the lives of private citizens countering all that grand political gesturing that's going on in the streets. So I think that in the end, and also just Marius in general, I think he's not an especially political creature per se. I think that
Well, he's
I think
very
that he's
meek and shy naturally, and he gets shaped.
right. He's more important as a private citizen with like an internal life, as are Cosette and I think Jean Valjean.
Do you
And I think that
guys think that actually parallels Thénardier in a way, because he, like Thénardier, is very ultimately removed from being invested in the politics, and
but
that's why he's able to survive.
that's kind of a tenuous similarity, though. I mean, it's if you put it that way, it's a similarity, but that's not. I don't think that's why he survives. Well, I think it's kind of different. So Thénardier uses the system in order to survive, and that's why he has no political beliefs per se, right? With Marius, I think it's more that the narrative behind him is pushing him through the politics.
Yeah.
Yeah, that it doesn't really matter what politics he has because he's a private citizen first. I think
Is Marius? Sorry, I was gonna make a stupid point.
Please, I love your.
I was gonna be like, is Marius a stand-in for for France?
He's a stand-in for Victor Hugo.
Yeah.
Right, and that
sure.
this idea that like, because the thing that's so interesting about this period that you kind of get, which I mean, this is one of the things that I really liked in the movie, that you get, it's so clear how deluded the Les Amis are, right? It's not that they heroically fall because of overwhelming numbers, and and like that's something that I don't think I ever really got as much from the musical. It's just that they really fuck shit up. And the reason why I think that's so interesting is because we're in the era of pre-mass politics. So when they talk about the people, they're talking about sort of specifically the people in Paris who are the working class that they have a day-to-day interaction with. Like the fucking peasants, out there, have no connection to any of this, right? I mean, when suffrage happens throughout the 19th century, they consistently vote for monarchist candidates. That's actually what happens. That's one of the things that happens during the Second Republic. So the idea that politics, there's this very small group of people, or maybe one or two individuals in the play or either in the musical, for whom politics is a passion and whom the wider ideals are a bigger thing. And for everybody else, for somebody like Marius, it's about, family and legacy and, what has happened in the past, and sort of the arguments themselves become secondary because it's about sort of this allegiance to family.
Yes.
I don't know.
It's 100% what I mean, what I wanted to say. Exactly it.
Oh,
Yes.
I'm glad.
Yes.
Since I just
I love
pulled it out of my
you.
butt.
Exactly what I was hoping someone would get to that was more articulate than me, aka you.
Oh, hearts. Are we doing Gavroche? Are we doing Rex?
Oh, well, just the thing about Gavroche was it's also tied to the whole ego and politics and revolution and whatever.
Right.
I think that, right. I think it's just that he doesn't see revolution in this, like, the system is so broken that revolution, he understands that it's necessary, but he doesn't see it working the way he wants it to, which is why you get all this collateral damage, like on the outskirts of Gavroche dying and Monsieur Mabeuf like doing his whole thing with the flag. Like it's awful, and he doesn't like it. Hugo doesn't like it, but he doesn't really know how you carry like a private conviction into the public sphere and have it be something that affects change effectively. Like, I don't think he has the answer either, personally, is my opinion. I mean, I think he's kind of uneasy. So I think the conclusion that he ends up reaching is that we don't really know what's going to happen or how it's going to come about, but in order for change to happen, we need to love and have children, basically.
Maybe that's what makes the book an ineffective polemic, right? Maybe that's what makes the book not Uncle Tom's Cabin, because you don't come out with it being like, man, we really got to screw the rich.
Right.
Like, that's not where this ends out. And maybe, I mean, also, right, the fact that it's not like that he's not writing, he's not there at the time. But I don't know. Maybe that is why the story is more long lasting, because it is a little bit more ambiguous, but also why
that's exactly right. Like, I mean, if you think about Shakespeare, like no matter how, I guess, castigating he gets, like he always ends up with some sort of social renewal, you know, like,
well, there's
and
also...
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that with Shakespeare, I can't talk. With Shakespeare, there's always an out.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You read it one way, and there's always an out. He's so slippery.
I think that, I feel like Hugo actually, his out is not necessarily deliberately an out as much as it is like that's the only way that he knows, you know?
Right,
So,
right, exactly.
Which is, I guess, what makes him endearing.
He's kind of frustrated.
Yeah.
He has beliefs. He has all the feels.
He has all the feels, exactly.
Republic feels.
We're going to do Rex for Daisy, and then we're going to wrap it up with our favorite things.
Shut this down.
Yes. And thank you guys for holding on so long. We are so sorry that it took us 2 hours to actually get this broadcast going. And
are you thinking the viewers or us?
Everybody involved.
Do we have any viewers right now?
No thanks to Google.
Do we have anybody listening right now? Or...
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Oh, we love you. Sorry Google.
I'm putting 60 seconds on the clock.
For Rex.
Rex, go.
Evi.
What?
Evi?
Yeah?
Oh, do you want to do Rex?
Oh, sure. Okay. So I rec anything by an author on the AO3 called Greek Hoop. She has written this one epic about Enjolras taking in Montparnasse, and Jean Prouvaire also has a crush on Enjolras, and it's like 65K and awesome. She's also done some Valjean Javert.
Is it sad?
It's Les Miserables. I mean,
see, this is my problem. That's why I asked that question, because everything's so sad.
Well, I don't want to spoil it for you. And I also wrecked
too late.
I also wrecked this work in progress called 3 Days, or the one where Javert and Valjean take a road trip through France and raise a child, which is exactly what it sounds like.
Is that the one?
That's the one I mentioned before.
Oh, okay.
It's currently got 5 out of 8 chapters posted and is about 17K. And
Yay!
It's pretty cool.
So that's current? It's being written now?
Yeah.
Ah, awesome. Yeah, I was actually
So
just going to ask you for that, so that's awesome.
Oh, that was almost 60 seconds exactly.
Oops.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I just didn't want you to feel like you had to keep talking if you didn't know more Rex. But
I mean, but Eva's good at this sort of thing because, like, being mod is in her blood, but I can't shut up, so I don't know how many seconds
I just need to wash my goddamn hair, so...
Oh, I'm sorry. I also want you to wash your goddamn hair, but I'll try to keep this short. Okay, wait, right, so one thing that I want to rec is, like, a really old one. Eva linked me to it when I asked her about it because I'd forgotten where it resided. But it's called Mardi Gras and I, and we will link you to it. And who was the author again?
Rabbit.
Rabbit, yeah, Rabbit. Oh, it's a noun. Why do I keep forgetting? Anyway, it's what I love. I think I just love the writing in this. I know that well, I mean, obviously writing styles are a matter of personal preference, but I love the lushness. I love writing that makes itself known to be writing a lot more than kind of unobtrusive writing, quote unquote, that maybe some other people prefer. Anyway, it's a lot of cross-dressing. It's a lot of very fluid gender boundaries, I guess, is what I find also fascinating about it. I think I just described it as it's boys dressing up as girls and then pretending to be their girl selves while fucking other boys who think they're fucking boys. They're pretending to be girls. It's very
It's Mardi Gras.
complex. Yeah, it's Mardi Gras basically. Everything goes, and I love it for what it is. It is grand. And pairing wise, I guess it's Baruel and Courfeyrac mostly. There is
Baruel and Courfeyrac.
Yeah, some Comte and Enjolras there a little bit, but as usual, it's mostly unrequited. But yes, that is one. And then there's I would also like to rec basically everything by A. Marguerite. We will link to her AO3 page, but it's specifically as a stand-in for everything. I want to rec. What's the title? My Object All Sublime. My Object All Sublime. That's the title, because it's one of the relatively shorter ones at 13K, and it has a shape that I really love in stories where it's not like a mountain that you kind of climb to and you get to the peak and then you come back down. It's more like this really wide river that you follow, and then you look up and you're not where you started, but you don't really know how you got there, which I love when that happens in stories. But it's what you would call, I guess, team fic or ensemble fic in other fandoms mostly, because it's like a lot of lesbian goodness, and it just makes me really happy. And Marguerite writes these stories where I'm incessantly charmed by basically everything. I mentioned A Passion for the Absolute, which is Enjolras and Courfeyrac, and everybody recs that, and that's also super cool. It's a cool story. I hope you can read it, but that's longer, which is why I read the other one. And then also, I'm sorry I can't shut up, but she also has a work in progress called Some Friendlier Sky, which is Courfeyrac and Cosette, which I have such a soft spot for, like a major soft spot. So, basically it's like I'm writing everything on the AO3 page, but yes, what I wanted to write was My Object All Sublime. Okay, I'm wrapping it up. I'm going to shut up now. I'm sorry, in the chat, everybody's just like, shut up, shut up, shut up. I know, I'm sorry.
Fandom spotting, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, lightning round. Asia, your favorite thing in fandom this week?
Oh my god, Colin Morgan won an award and it made the Merlin fandom really happy, which in turn makes me really happy because Merlin fandom deserves a break.
Oh.
Okay, Nat.
Oh, quick thing. Okay, I refound this one fighting game based on Les Miserables called Arm Joe. We will also link to it. I will be short, but it's amazing. It's a fighting game, and it's free for downloading. So you can download it and play it, and you can fight. It's awesome.
Nice.
That was short.
Is it me?
Yeah.
Yes.
So, 30 Rock is winding up its 7 seasons, and somehow has just decided, like, there's just, like, a lot of really fun fan service in, like, a weird way that, like, hipster sitcoms have, and also the characters are, like, coming together, and things are actually changing on the sitcom, which is something that doesn't usually happen on a lot of sitcoms, and it's really nice, and I'm going to cry my little butt off when it ends next week. So.
Aww.
And my favorite thing is just the... yes, I'm still there. Sorry, the chat just asked me if I'm still here.
Yeah,
And it flashed a little picture of a person in bed, which is where I should be.
Oh my god.
Alright, but my favorite thing is just the preponderance of one-person Les Miserables medleys on YouTube, which are really cool.
Yes.
My favorite is probably by Lin Yang, who is this 18-year-old the Singaporean student who, like, does all of her stuff by
And
ear.
I wrote an article about it, and
yes,
I
was gonna get to that. Yeah.
Don't pimp yourself out.
I was gonna pimp this all in my own terms, but Asia, I guess,
Eva was
wrote an
gonna do it
article
for you.
about it or some sort, and it's
Gosh.
on some website, the Daily
She's a
Ampersand,
journalist or
whatever. I
something.
don't care.
So it's all about Asia in the end.
Yeah.
Much as usual.
Oh.
All right, and that is all. Medleys are great. Also, you should watch Bomb Girls. It's good.
Bomb
Okay.
Girls?
Yeah,
Bomb Girls. It's about Canadian munitions workers in a bomb factory during World War II. It's pretty cool. And
Is
it's
it-
canon lesbian, isn't?
I'm getting Bletchley Circle vibes from it. Is it kind of like?
I don't know who or what that is.
That sounds kind of like, that was my opinion. Or when she just said that, I was like, Bletchley Circle?
Is that an anime? I don't even know.
No, it's a British show.
Yeah, okay.
with
About
girls.
the code crackers. Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, they all sound awesome. Everything is happy. We're in love.
Yes! Everything is the opposite of miserable.
Except for Google, because it sucks.
Yeah, you guys, we're so sorry that it took us 2 hours to actually bring this broadcast to you, and that it took us another 2 hours to wrap this broadcast up.
How long have we been going?
We started at
unclear.
9:45.
So basically, over
Hey, this
2
is
hours.
shorts. This is the short one.
Yeah, so if you
Almost
guys
an
have
entire
questions
hour
or any further comments,
We're never
tweet
doing
your-
this again. That's a lie.
No.
That's a lie. We'll be back next week.
we have probably we've probably said all there is to say about Les Miserables, but
Yeah.
feel free to ask your questions and tweet to Fandom Spotting, send them to our ask at Tumblr, fandomspotting.tumblr.com, or email us at fandomspotting@gmail.com.
Yeah,
We'll
we'll
be
answer
back.
all of those.
Yes,
But not
we will.
today.
Yeah, but not now. We'll be back this coming Sunday with Minorities in Media and Fandom Part 1.
Finally,
Yes, finally.
tune in.
So yeah, we're excited, and someone needs to make a "I have come to sleep with you" joke, which it won't be me because I can't make that joke.
I
Nat-
feel like the joke is just in and of itself. The jokes. It's just somebody says, "I've come to sleep with you" out loud, and that's the joke. It just
Marius is just so hapless that everything he says, you know.
I love that it's
Spotting,
not even
we have come to
innuendo in
sleep with
the
you.
French.
No, it's not, and just I don't know. It's Marius. Javert calls him adult in canon, and that's spawned a whole fanon characterization of Marius adult to the lawyer.
I think we're all going to be saying that to our beds because I'm going to head straight to mine after this.
Yes, we have gone to sleep with our beds.
Yes.
I'm gonna go sleep in the shower. It's gonna be really hot. All right.
Okay, we love you.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Republic.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you.
Yay.